To the max.
Peace. Let's go. Okay. Peace.
To the max.
Little chill stream, man. Good to have you all. Thank you for being here. Yes, on that Future Shock podcast channel. About to get into it here. Just gonna talk about a few things. Chill, light work. I got some articles, a couple things I wanted to speak on, and follow up some ideas from last night's show, health stream over there on Hulk's Spiritual Logic, aka Hulk Health channel. We did a couple more points I wanted to make, and yeah, we got some news. Apparently, the witch is dead. Bing Bong. Interesting year. Yeah, a lot has happened. And I don't even know what to call him. He's so significant when we think about geopolitics over the century. Henry Kissinger has passed, apparently. Let me pull this up. Yeah. Henry Kissinger, dominant U.S. diplomat, Cold War era, dies at aged 100. Interesting. Exactly on the dot. 100 years old. You know, I can't help but think there's some symbolism there. I can't help but, think there's something significant about this death and this number and how he went out. Not necessarily how he went out, but what his message was as he was going out. And also considering his views towards artificial intelligence, the work he actually did. He has a book out with a few other authors discussing AI and the future of society. He's well aware of where things are going, clearly. And he, interestingly, from what I've read, he was offered a spot at OpenAI not too long ago, possibly weeks before his death. And apparently he denied the position, almost as if he knew he was on his way out. Well, I'm sure he was aware of that, given the condition he's been in for some time. But I think it's an interesting scenario. I wonder where he is right now, if you know what I mean. I wonder where he is. I think we got some ideas, that's for sure. But, we don't want to speak too harshly on that. And there's also this, right? This is pretty big. Okay, the cases, of course. Cases. Once again, we had this pneumonia thing going on in China, and now we have our own case going on here. Now, apparently they're saying this is connected to some bacteria. What's interesting about that is, I thought we were talking about V words around here. I thought this was virology. What you talking about? Bacteria, Willis? Bacteria? Just doesn't make much sense. None of it makes sense, and that's by design. It's not supposed to make sense. People are supposed to be confused. Don't think, just shut up and listen. That's all that matters. Just do what you're told. When you're supposed to be afraid, be afraid. We'll give you the signals. When you're supposed to be happy, we'll let you know when to be happy. Right. So here we are. We'll see how far they push this, how hard they push this. And we touched on it a bit last night over at Hulk's channel. And we were talking about all the things going on right now, mixed with changed weather, seasons, holiday season, people's diets changing, times changing, resetting clocks, etc., in certain areas at least. And just all the stress and anxiety going on, the economic issues that are causing people to be stressed out. All of these things affect one's health. Not to mention, this inundation of waves and frequencies from our highly sophisticated technologies and wireless networks. Not to mention, people have recently went in for their annual jibby jabs. And I think there's like a trifecta version now that targets 3 different phantom menaces. Now, it isn't to say that people aren't coming down with something or aren't experiencing something, because they are. I see it all the time, all around me. A lot of people are having, let's just say a lot of people are symptomatic, right? So we're not going to deny this fact. But from my position and my perspective, I think whatever is going on, it's being, let's say, misdiagnosed, right? By design. Especially when I think about the direction the One Health movement is going. That's part of the whole World Health Organization's pandemic accord preparedness. And it's clear that they're setting up something to justify this plan, which is pretty troubling when you read it. And it's supposed to be officially, I guess, concluded in 2024. And we're at the tail end of 2023, similar to how we were at the tail end of 2019 when things started to appear, right? I will never forget that December, right, 2019, and how we were getting these stories from China early. And then right when January hit, they started to pick up more. February, even more. And then by March, even us over here in the West, we're locked up in our homes, afraid, scared, and afraid. Oh, wow. Eric says, I hit 225 for 1 rep. Wow. I did get your email. I've yet to respond to it. Just want to let you know. That is something, man. Congratulations. That's big. That's big. especially considering how you started. That's excellent. I can't wait to hear more, and I have some things to add to that. That's great, man. Good news. Nothing like a little progress. However we can get it, whether it's in our studies, in our prayer life, in our relationships, or little personal PRs. You know, if it's has to do with working out and your health, all these little things just make life a little better. And congratulations, man. Very good. Very, very good. That's something definitely to consider today, you know, when we have such a sedentary and lethargic and indifferent population. The better term would be distracted. It's not that people don't want to do these things. They probably do. They probably care to, but they're just a bit too distracted. We all are, to degrees, right? Let's be honest here. We all, especially those of us that are well aware, you find yourself at times having to forcefully pull yourself away from certain things, right? Because they are powerful, all these distractions in life. Now, no, that's not the one I wanted. Well, let's look at this. I pulled this last night during the show. And this just goes to show how, in my view, a lot of these solutions, these alternatives, these recommendations, and these therapies, and these new emerging biotechnologies are, I'd say, more dangerous than that, right? Excuse the train. This is pretty loud. It scared me right there. A cutting edge treatment, cancer treatment, may cause cancer. May cause cancer. A cutting edge cancer treatment may cause cancer. Sounds pretty familiar, does it not? Say, regarding heart issues or something. There always seems to be a trade-off with a lot of this stuff, you know. And I guess trade-offs come in general, but I mean, when we try to extend or stretch things this far to where we think we can, through synthetics, you know, fix man, biology might have a problem with that. God's image, God's creation might have a problem with that, right? Just naturally speaking. Miss Massless, good to see you. Axiom's in the house, good to see you. Barry as well. Van Allen's in the building. Good to see you guys, man. Thanks for joining. We're just gonna do our little light stream, chill stream for the week. Fake Nemo rigged game, good to see you. I know, how are you still getting jibby jabbed, right? How? How is this possible at this point? You know, I chalk it up to ignorance in one part. And I chalk it up to ignorance, and then I also chalk it up to say, I chalk it up to sunken cost fallacy, right? Sunken cost fallacy. So check this out. Actually, let me see who else. Belongs to the Father. Good to see you. Definitely misdiagnosis. Amen to that. That's how I'm seeing a lot of this stuff. I mean, just based on the false presuppositions. Michelle Cares. Good to see you. All right, I think I got it. Ascension Trading. Good to see you as well, brother. Return to your first love, Jesus. Good to see you as well. Thank you for joining. Sail Away is with us. PSYOP 2.0. Absolutely. And Prisma Dream. Good to see you. Alexis as well. Carol, good to see you. All right. Terrence Johnson has joined us. Good to see you, brother. Very good to see you. Hold on a second. Hold on one second. Okay. Now, speaking of this here, speaking of people getting their annual flu jab that's now being joined by this new variant one. Hold on, I'm sorry, I'm just getting text messages. Sorry, guys. the annual flu, and now we're getting the variant, and there's a RSV. This is just crazy. It's absolutely crazy. I mean, to think that this is helping you in any way is mind blowing. And I know I said we're going to do a chill stream. Sometimes it's hard to be chill when we talk about some of this stuff, but I just have to speak on this. Now, in 2017, during the hoopla of what was it, Zika, I was coming to the conclusion that they were trying to push forward towards some type of universal jab, right? This idea of a yearly jab everyone gets, but is not the flu jab, because it's almost like it's hard to market the flu jab, because it doesn't really do much at all. And I don't think any jabs do anything at all, right? But if we're just, let's speak objectively here. So it's hard to market that, right? Because most people are like, look, I'd rather just get it if I get it, because a lot of people don't get the flu. It's not something everyone gets, right? It depends on your quality of life, or should I say quality of health, etc. So a lot of people are just like, I'd rather not, because those that have gotten it, I've never received one in my life, but those that have say they always get sick anyways. And sometimes it's really bad. And wouldn't you rather just let it maybe happen and just deal with it if it does? Or literally give it to yourself and kind of anticipate it days after or hours after you put that stuff in your body? That's creepy, man. Like, I couldn't imagine going to the doctor and like getting this thing and then like knowing I'm getting ready to get sick. And you know, the psychology of that, when we think of self-fulfilling prophecy, etc. And just like thinking it on, you know, like thinking it into existence, worrying it into existence, and it being probably much worse just from that type of thought process when it does come. And then the anger you probably feel after the fact, like, damn it, I shouldn't even have got that. You know, what if I didn't take that and I wouldn't have gotten sick, but now I am sick? It's just, I don't know. And they're giving this stuff to kids now. The flu jab, not just the COVID, but the flu one. It's like, listen, man. You know, some of us that are a little older growing up as kids, we never went to get an annual flu jab. I mean, come on. You got sick, you get over it. Now, I do understand, especially when we get into the older ages and the elderly, it's a different situation, right? They're concerned about their health. They're doing what they think is best to avoid getting sick, right? I get it. Right? Not to say I think they should be taking it, but I understand the reasoning behind it. Yeah, look at Sandra Kippert. Good to see you. Long time listener. I got a flu shot 13 years ago. I got so sick I went to the hospital. See, this is what I'm talking about. Yeah, by their own admission, Miss Maslis, it's like 3% effective. What's the point of that? Even the pain alone isn't worth 3%. You know, let alone hoping it works. Just driving to the to the doctor is enough stress. I can't stand walking in those places, man. Yeah, never got one again. I don't blame you. Because from what I've read and heard and experienced in life, it's not too often that people get fatally sick from this flu thing we call, you know. Usually it comes and goes. Now, I do understand if immune issues or older, I do understand that's a little different, but I don't think the jab helps anything. Now, getting back to this idea of universal jab, it was something I've always thought was really going on. At least this was the goal, okay? And here we are. Check this out. This is Wired, a technology publication, mind you. Again, technology and medicine is one now. Right? Check this out. This was November 18th. The long quest for universal flu jab finally takes its first steps. The search for a shot that could protect us against many strains and maybe a pandemic is notching achievements at last. But the flu's endless mutation and our own biology stand in the way. Here it is, right? This is evidence. Evidence for the idea that we've been having for quite some time. And I'm not saying COVID was all about this, but at least in the beginning, I was aware that this is a clear goal. And it's clear when you have access to the entire population's body by some type of culturally influenced universal jab that becomes an annual thing. I think of the film the Giver, which is actually a book, and how it was just standard for everyone to take their punch. There was it wasn't even questioned, right? And if you guys know the story, it weakens, certain human essences, right? So, and I think we're seeing something similar. We were discussing this last night about the beginning of these things, these annual things, or let's just say the schedule, right? Given at birth. What it does is it sets up the rest. Well, it sets up the life of that which receives it in a way that's negative. It's like you start from negative, Hulk was saying, and I agree with this. It's setting us up for health failure, right? It's like buying a brand new vehicle and putting, foreign substances in the engine's fluid compartments in ways that won't break the engine, but would damage it to degrees, would slow it down, would cause it to need maintenance regularly, right? Or designing it as such, like when we think of planned obsolescence with or smartphones, for instance. I remember the early cell phones used to be rock solid, right? And they'd last. They're like bricks. Now, the way they design these things, man, your battery goes out in 3 months or 6 months. It's almost useless after a year or two. You get by, but it has issues, especially if you're not updating it. And I've always been one to never ever update my phones. And sometimes you get tricked into it. You accidentally update it. It's like you're near a Wi-Fi and something, and you accidentally push it and it starts updating it. And yeah, when you don't update it, your phone just acts weird and funny and funky. Right? Planned obsolescence. It's in my view, right? Oh, you guys can't even see this. What am I doing? So, this type of medicine. Right, so you guys saw this, right? Cutting edge cancer treatment may cause cancer. The FDA is investigating. Oh, okay, we can trust you guys, sure. It's for me, this, if medicine is going in this direction, updated jabs says Prism, right? Like a computer software, like we update our phones. Gotta be careful with this, but there is a connection, and we've talked about this even before quarantine was finished. We were talking about this in 2020, about software, about geo, right? About how this therapy is a type of sensor, right? We were talking about that, and the deeper you look into it, and we were just throwing around the idea. I'd already seen IEEE papers on this stuff, but once I discovered that there was GO in the juice, everything clicked. But I didn't want to talk about it too much, of course, because it wasn't very safe. But at the same time, I don't want to throw around ideas I'm not somewhat pretty confident about. But now the confidence is extremely, or at least significantly increased since. And more I'm discovering that when we think of telecommunications and when we think of medicinal therapies, they're one and the same. And soon enough, we'll see a lot more publicly about this. As of now, all we got is white papers, right? But this is going to become more clear. Hence the push for annual universal in that it fixes a multitude of things. So what this does is it pulls in people that aren't interested in a flu jab. Oh, but it's not just for the flu. It's for all variants. So this will convince pretty much everyone because no one wants to get sick, right? Interesting. Isn't it interesting? And here it is. Here they are pushing it. And again, it's always, we're the bad guys. The nature, God's image, his natural, organic, not synthetic, but organic creation, our bodies, our systems, right, are in the way. Listen, look at this. But the flu's endless mutation, right, which is a way to continue on. It just keeps mutating. It's like chasing the magic dragon, right? And we don't even know what the flu is, generally speaking, the public, let's say. We don't know what any of this stuff is. We don't know what viruses are or anything. So whatever we're told, okay, oh, the virus keeps changing. Oh, the flu keeps changing. Okay, sure. Keeps mutating. So that means you got to keep doing things. Oh, you got to keep updating and switching out the programming of these therapies. Okay, sure. Whatever it takes, doc. And then, but our biology stands in the way. And there's something in there. There's a subtext there, I think. Our biology is in the way. When I read this, I think nature is in the way. God's creation is in the way. It needs to be altered. It needs to be augmented. It needs to be fused with foreign synthetics. It needs to be mirrored digitally, right? So it can be commandeered externally by man's devices, man's machines, man's artificial intelligence. Yes, I agree, Cheds. God gave us all we need in nature. I agree with this. I really do. Now, the problem with that is, and they'll make this argument and it'll be reasonable, the way we live now isn't very natural. It's just not. The way we eat isn't very natural. Our environments aren't very natural. The materials we wear on our bodies, in many cases, aren't very natural. So we're living in a very synthetic world now. And we're putting synthetic materials inside of our bodies, essentially through food, as an example. So now it's hard to even really only consider the natural regarding our bodies and our lives. It's almost like now we have to, at least rationally, start to include synthetic things, since we're already synthetic to degrees, if you know what I mean. And that's why I try my best in my life and for my family to be as natural as possible, right? Now, there's certain things we can never avoid, right? Microplastics, heavy metals, and substances. We can mitigate them by being aware and wise in our decision making, right? We can do little things like turning off Wi-Fi in our home when we're sleeping, as an example, wearing blue light glasses when we're in front of screens, lessening exposure to certain things, removing microwaves from our homes. There's things we can do, right? But unfortunately, we're in such a synthetic world and we live such synthetic lives, generally speaking. It's rational for them to introduce these types of synthetic solutions and therapies. That's the hard part. It's hard to argue against it because we're already prepared for these things as such. The same goes for VR. You know, we're doing the whole VR lecture series and simulation and all of this stuff. And it's rational in this day and age when people have been, especially young people, living a considerate amount of their life in these virtual worlds. So to consider some of these ideas aren't too far-fetched. And it's like the Overton window. It's like a cultural Overton window that keeps shifting towards singularity. And with that comes many levels and layers, you know. It's transhumanist language and linguistics, you know, concepts and ideas and philosophies, right? But then there's also actual technology right? That integrates with our bodies. And then there's the environmental aspect of it when we're living in synthetic environments or connecting to synthetic communication systems. There's so many levels to it, but it's boiling frog type of scenario where we're just slowly being encapsulated by the synthetic. And it gets to a point where the only way to address these things is synthetically. And a way to look at this is, say, someone who's been living this way for quite some time to the degree that they've damaged their health significantly. Natural remedies in certain cases might not necessarily do much, right? Or, not to say it's too late, but the damage has been done, you know what I mean? And that's an unfortunate thing to have to accept. But even given that scenario, that's rather common today, I would think, you always can start over, right? You always can. And I say in those situations, it is time to be extremely diligent and drastic with your changes, drastically changing how you live your life, right? So here's just some proof of this. Long quest, right? A long quest. I think the quest is not, clearly, it's not about health, right? You know that. But it's about having a direct access to everyone's bodies, direct access to the interior of an entire population that has a multitude of applications, right? Not just genetic things, but neurological things, right? Hormonal things, essentially commandeering behavior, but also system processing, like restructuring the function of the quote unquote immune system, as an example, all under the guise of healing, right? Now, peace to you, Nicholas. Alice Doe, great question. Do blue light glasses really make a difference? Great question. You know, I dealt with this for some time now. I've been using blue light glasses for several years now. And I'll say this, okay? There's ways to test, right? How accurate, or let's say how truthful are these tests? I'm not sure, right? Because to be honest, I'm not exactly educated on how. I don't really know how to read and understand the conclusions of the test, but they have these little light things. It's a blue light, right? And there's a little piece of paper, and you shoot the light through the glasses. And when it's not blue light protected, it makes a what is the term? There's like an artifact on the paper. But when you put the blue light in front of the light and you shine the blue light on it, there's no artifacts on the paper, right? So if we're just going to, from a novice's perspective, just think rationally, logically, it appears as if it's blocking whatever that is that's causing those artifacts. So that's one way, right? How significant is that with regard to protecting your eyes? I don't know, right? I don't know. It's kind of like, it reminds me of these commercials, and I'm not equating the two. It just reminds me of those commercials back in the 80s and 90s where they would be selling laundry detergent, and they would like put, a stain and show you this product and this is our product, and then they would pour the substance, and then the product being promoted would clean off the stain and the other one wouldn't clean off the stain. Or when they would, like a headache commercial, and it would show you like some graphic that has nothing to do with what's actually happening, but it just gives you the impression that something's happening, something good is occurring, right? I don't know. I'm just trying to be completely honest about the scenario. So I can't really say, right? But what I will say is this, and I pray that this isn't some type of placebo effect either. But I know, on the days that I work during the week, I can do very easily 8 hours in front of screens. I have several screens here that I'm constantly in front of, okay? Now, those are the days that I'm actually in front of the screens. Like reading and writing days, I'm not in front of screens as much at all because my face is in a book, right? Or I'll have days when I do half a day reading and then the other half I'm in front of screens. So that means those days I'll be in front of screens maybe 3 to 4 hours, which is a lot better. But the days where I'm just like editing and doing a lot of internet research, or editing and producing, say, lecture series, documents, etc., or design, aesthetics, whatever I'm working on in front of the screen, when I don't have my glasses on, I literally feel pain in my eyes. I literally feel like weird. It gives me this, not a headache, but I feel pressure, right? But when I put the glasses on, it goes away almost immediately. And I'm in front of these screens so much, I think that without them, it would cause those types of dry eye, painful pain in the back of the eyes, subtle, mild headaches, and which is a complaint a lot of people have when they work, say, in front of computers in the office for hours on hours a day, and they tend to get these headaches and stuff. So I'm not saying it cures that, but I've noticed a significant difference. That's all I can really say. And to be honest, I haven't done much research into its efficacy. Eye strain. There we go, Bari. Significant eye strain. Like if I take them off, I get this weird feeling, man, in my eyes. And you know, placebo effect's powerful too, but I don't think it is that. I don't think it is that. But again, not too sure. Maybe it's something I should research. You know, I kind of just go with it. And I know that's not the best way to go about things. Good question, though. Very good question. Miss Maskless says they seem to help me, but I don't know. I wonder if it's like a psyop. Yeah, we always got to question things like that. We really do. And like I said, the only reason I continue is because I literally feel physiologically the difference. So, Diana, good to see you. Very good to see you. Lowly man for crisis. Holla, holla fam. Holla fam. Good to see you, lowly man. Sail away. Okay, you're talking to someone else. All right, let's continue. Yeah, let me pull this up. Now let's talk a little bit about health lightly. I don't want to go too hard into this. But I want to talk about McDonald's, man. Now, I grew up eating McDonald's, eating some fast food. I haven't had it in a while. It's been quite some time. But, here and there a little, not McDonald's. I can't even remember the last time I had McDonald's. But, I think the last fast food I had was Carl's Jr., and I know that's not much better. But it definitely tastes better if it a little bit of higher quality. But I do understand it is a cultural thing. It's part of our culture. I would say to stay away from the stuff, but those of us that do, we're a small percentage. I think about the population generally. McDonald's is massive. It's huge. We could just look at its financial success. Okay. Now, we talked about this a little while back, how they're bringing back an old character called Cosmic, COSMC. And the reason I was bringing it up then was I was relating it to how we were getting so much alien stories, pushing all of this alien stuff. All right, hold on, guys. You hold on 1 second, okay? 1 second. I have to answer this. Give me 1 second. All right, guys. I really appreciate your patience. We're having some serious issues over here. It's always something, but looks like there might be some construction happening in a few minutes here. So if it's too loud, we'll just wrap up. But there's really nothing I can do. It's not. This isn't. I'm renting this space, so I just got to go with it. Unfortunately, so see, how many did we lose here? Okay, you guys are still hanging out. All right, I appreciate you, man. Yeah, we're having some piping or plumbing issues, and they gotta like tear out floors, and it's crazy, man. But I can't do anything about it, unfortunately. Okay. Let's see. All right. Can you see that? Yeah. So cosmic. Did the train wreck? No. And then we got the trains too. What you deal with for cheap rent, right? That's you get what you pay for, right? But we're doing the best we can. We're doing the best. One day, I pray one day we'll be in a situation where we can get something much better. But as of now, this is what we got to work with. It's better. It's much better than what we've had in the past. For those that have been around a while, I was literally working out of a closet. If you guys remember the 2018 days before we were able to get an actual studio space, I converted in my apartment, tiny little 500 square foot apartment. I had a pretty decent cabinet. I guess it's a pantry. It's like a closet pantry thing. And I literally converted that into a studio. I tore all the shelves out. I lined the walls with foam. I rigged it up, man. I had wiring and everything. It was fun. Those are good days. That was during the Nightline. Those Nightline shows were done in a friggin' closet, man. And it was hot as hell in there. I told y'all, at the end of the show, I'd be soaking wet. Because we do a good 2 to 3 hours regularly. Soaking wet with sweat. Oh, man. And no one knew the whole time, I was just getting it done, but looking back, we could laugh about it, we could laugh about it. And you guys remember before that, before I was doing live streams back in 2016, I was recording my videos, my documentaries in my bathroom. I made rigged one of those little boxes with foam, and I propped it on top of the toilet stand. And the only reason I did it in the bathroom because it was the only place I could get decent sound. Yeah, I used to record all of those documentaries in my bathroom. Okay. We came a long way. I appreciate y'all for still being here, man. Anyhow, everything, and I'm thankful for whatever I have, even in the situation now, dealing with what I got to deal with. I'm thankful every time because you know what? It could always be worse, right? Now, everything we know about the new McDonald's chain Cosmic. So I brought up Cosmic, this new character, because we were getting all of this alien stuff. So I was like, isn't it interesting how while we're getting all this alien talk, McDonald's is coming out with a new brand, and it's reaching back to an old alien character. So I just look at a lot of these patterns as like social engineering movements in media, in markets and economies, industries. Media theory looks at it as blanket themes. So aliens are a blanket theme right now. We're seeing aliens all types of places. And in the last Future Shock episode, I was trying to describe how biotechnology and robotics, transhumanist theories, or let's say transhumanist themes, are being sprinkled in a blanket theme kind of way in different media forms, whether it be movies, Netflix, Amazon Prime, or, as I showed you, all of Bill Gates' holiday book recommendations every year from about 2018 to now were all, out of the 5 books, there was always at least 2 or 3 that related to, say, biotechnology or robotics or something along this transhumanist line. Interesting stuff. Anyhow, the whole McDonald's thing, there's so many connections here, aside just from the cosmic character and the alien concept. It's the food itself. It's poisonous. It's a type of slow kill poison, right? And I also think about the meat situation and how, especially McDonald's, probably gives the worst quality of meat possible. And then I think of what could be connected there. Now, I do remember the Finkelstein story about, there's human meat inside of. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I would not be surprised. Okay, I wouldn't hold that against them, but at the same time, it is a little bit. It is a little bit far fetched, right? Well, who knows these days? But there's so much connected to this whole McDonald's thing that I had to touch on this, given that we are talking a little bit about health and food. And I see food, and it has been this way, as a control mechanism, right? Controlling populations from the inside out without real sophisticated technology, just utilizing highly processed materials, synthetics, preservatives, dyes, etc., high fructose corn syrup, as ways to slow down the productivity of the human system or human systems. And I think also the scheduling and jibby jabs and all of that do a similar thing from birth. So it's like we're damaging the overall system of the human from birth. And then from that point, it's already damaged. And over time, from youth, we're given candy and we're given fast food and we're given all of these different substances that are synthetic and not real. And over time, we start to adapt. And if we want to consider epigenetics for what it's worth, what does that do to a human being over time, right? Getting back to this idea of addressing synthetics with synthetics, right? Is it the case that we are already partially synthetic just based on what we eat and what we put in our bodies? So it's interesting. But on top of that, another thing I really wanted to point out here, the main reason I pulled it, is because this is a great example of the future of products of industries moving towards this fourth industrial revolution, quick convenience, in and out, digitally processed, virtual, remote access, fast, instantaneous, touch and go kind of scenario where we won't be sitting down and enjoying meals together in large spaces and communicating and interacting and being intimate. Now everything is quick. Get it, get out, or don't even go. Just order it, have it delivered to you. Just everything streamlined. Remember efficiency, velocity, all the things that cuts off real human interactivity. Fascinating how everything is moving towards this dynamic. You are what you eat, says Robotics. Spot on, brother. Spot on. It's so true. It really is. If you eat synthetic things, you become synthetic yourself. Yeah, I used to love Subway, dude. Seriously, I got to be honest. I used to love going to Subway back in the day. It's been years, but I used to love Subway. I always thought it was the healthier option, right? Especially when I was, working and commuting and on the go every single day and never really had time to cook. Maybe on the weekends I cooked for sure, but during these years I was just always out. So Subway used to be one of my go-tos, man. And Quiznos, Subway were my favorites. There were others, but those were like the main ones, man. Boston Market, I used to like Boston Market. Man, I used to really rely on those places. It is trash, Rob. I mean, it's total trash. All of this stuff is trash. But at the time, I was like, this is the best I can get, right? And especially working in urban environments, there's not always many options unless you want to go to some fancy restaurant like in San Francisco, as an example, and it's very expensive, very expensive. So yeah, Quiznos was man, that was it for me. I used to love Quiznos. I used to get the marinara and the what was it? Goodness, I think it was the I can't remember what it was called. It was like bacon and cheese. Oh man, it was good. Oh man. Anyhow, so this is interesting. Check this out. By all accounts, McDonald's is doing just fine. The fast food behemoth sales have been great, with price increases adding to its bottom line. But McDonald's is also McDonald's. It's just there. Aside from some collaborations with celebrities and the occasional introduction of a new sandwich or sauce, it mostly serves as the unchanging standard against which all other fast food is measured. But the company is launching a new concept, seemingly aimed at capturing a younger and more mobile market. This is important, right? Because I think if we're going to see the direction of industry itself, I think it's important to look at some of the leading industrial brands, especially something like McDonald's. So moving towards capturing younger and more mobile markets. So when we think of younger, of course, younger culture, Gen Z, right? And then when we think of younger people, especially considering food, diet, health, you're at your most ignorant. When I was younger, I was eating anything and everything at will, with no consideration whether it's good or bad. And of course, you're young, so you're resilient. So you have that working for you too. So I'll eat right when I get older. That's a reasonable perspective for a young person. Not to say it's correct, it's right, but it's reasonable. So they're going for younger and mobile. I would say mobile phone. I would say device based. Right? In and out. Also, there's a drive-through here. It's strictly drive-through. You can't go in. There's no seats. Now, this is allegedly competing with Starbucks because it's focusing on drinks. It even has caffeinated drinks and shakes. So it's like this McDonald's Starbucks fusion, right? And we think of Starbuck Nation, right? It's disturbing when we look at it that way, but it's true. Fast, instantaneous, syrup and sugar, cheap, low quality coffee, overpriced. And just thinking about the endocrine disrupting plastic cups that they pour boiling hot substances, liquid in, that we're drinking from. There's no way any of this is good for us internally. And these are some of the most valuable and popular companies on earth. Lab-grown meat. Yeah, Amanda, I'm curious to know. And I would think they'd have to be transparent about this, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're not. But I would like to know if lab-grown meat is now being used in these industries. Yes, Josh Gilbert, good to see you, bro. GO, that's another question I have. Is the GO going in the food? I have papers that are already developing GO for food. It's environmental biosensors, right? So in plants, as an example, they have geo sensor technology, right? So, and they also, anything biological, they have these geo nanoscale sensors for now. I have so many documents on this stuff. It's overwhelming, honestly. It's overwhelming. So I wonder about that too. I really do. So here's we watch this. This is the
Ronald McDonald and Friends in the story of Cosmic.
One day,
this is the character.
A strange object landed in McDonald land.
Look, a silver flower pot.
Oh, that's no flower pot, Grimace.
Who's there? Hi-ho, Earth people. Cosmic here. I popped in from outer space on a trade mission.
Trade?
Okay, I'll take this and trade you that.
I get it. Trade.
Okay, I'll take this and trade you that.
Boy, he moves fast. How about joining us in a picnic? I've got the McDonald's cheeseburgers, fries, and...
So there's the character that they're kind of reaching back to. Let's read this. In McDonald's 2022 earnings report, the company said it would continue focusing on digital delivery and drive-through services, and that the vast majority of new restaurant openings in the U.S. and international operated market segments will include a drive-through. So here we go, moving towards convenience, in and out, mobility, mobile. No sitting down, pure efficiency and velocity. Quick, instant. And we understand when it comes to food products of any kind, speed is an enemy, right? Because speed, I think, includes haste, right? Which includes a lot of uh, removal of steps in the processing of that food to create that speed, right? So you need cheaper, lower quality ingredients, more mass-produced ingredients. You guys all know all of this, right? It's very obvious that anything fast can't be of much quality when we think about food. Okay, processed, preserved, chemically infused, synthetic materials. Okay. Cosmic seemed to be the embodiment of that mission and a way for the company to expand its real estate footprint, given that's how the company really makes its money anyway. The big reason that we can now look at small formats is because of the growth that's happened with the digital and delivery, where you don't necessarily need the big dining rooms that you needed in our traditional restaurants. So you're now able to look at real estate sites that previously would have been sort of off limits to us. So now they can look at little shacks, like little boxes, just to house workers, which will probably be eventually replaced by robots. They're already doing this in many drink companies serving beverages. They have robots preparing everything. I saw a really good example of this once in Vegas. Last time I went there, I was looking into their robotic bar setup they have there over in what is it called? The Mile Mall. It's like it's called Mile something. It's like this little mall thing on the strip next to New York. And I was checking it out and I was taking pictures, just analyzing. And it's a full service bar with about 7, or no, maybe not that many, at least 4 or 5 automated robots serving the drinks. You go up to a little kiosk and you kind of type in what you want, and these robots go to work. It's kind of cool to watch, if I'm gonna be honest, but it's creepy at the same time because you see where this can go, right? You can see the logic behind it. And then I went to another place, this time in Seattle, where I was looking into an automated, wasn't coffee, I think it was tea. It's like matcha and stuff. It was like a Japanese coffee house or tea house. I was checking this place out, and it's very similar. There were workers in there doing certain things. I think from what I remember, I think they were working the register. But the drinks, all of the drinks, the entire menu was all automated by these really cool looking robots. And it's just like, wow, man, this is crazy. I mean, it's cool and stuff. It's interesting, especially those into sci-fi. But when you think about the logic, it's like, okay, where is this going? What could this lead to? How much is this going to change? And then we look at what are they called? I forget the androids over there at the Amazon factories that they're using now. It's just, it's interesting, man. It just goes to show how many industries are really going to be transformed. And I see McDonald's moving towards this like everyone else, right? So there's 2 parts to this. One part is the interesting direction a major industry is going regarding automation, regarding the shrinking of environment, the war on public space. We not to say I want to go sit in a McDonald's and eat there, but I'm just saying the behavior of this company is going to trickle down into many other industries, okay? And it could come a time where it's hard to find anywhere to sit down and eat as a family together. Not to say that's even a good thing, given the low quality of a lot of restaurant food and, the cutting corners a lot of even nice restaurants do, buying the cheaper stuff. As a bike messenger for some time, I worked directly with a lot of very big restaurants in San Francisco. And I remember way before I was doing any of this kind of work, even then, just studying how they run these operations. And it's just so fascinating to me to see some of the low quality of even some of these nicer restaurants. Reminds me of that show, Restaurant, what was it called? Not Restaurant Wars, but Ramses and how he would expose these restaurants. It's true. It's very true. And I get it though, right? Because not to say it's justified, but I understand it's very expensive to run a restaurant. It's extremely expensive. The overhead is insane. It's kind of crazy to want to open up a restaurant unless you're very passionate about food, right? You're very passionate about what you're doing. You're very passionate about the food you want to offer to your consumer or your customers. I could see that. But what I've noticed and what you even see in these shows is they lose the passion over time, right? They may have started off the first few years very passionate, going head over heels for it, going the extra mile. But then the overhead just starts to collapse upon them. And then they just try to survive. And once you're just trying to survive, you lose your passion. It's hard to live life in a survival mode and have passion. It's hard. Not say it's not possible. I mean, the smart thing to do is to harness that struggle and survival mentality. To harness that, and feed that into and create a passion out of it. It's something I experienced for some time. Everyone doesn't think that way. Everyone's not capable of that harnessing, if you will. So in one way we have the technological direction, right? But then we also have just the quality of food. So it's interesting how it's like, okay, you guys are moving towards this whole new automated thing, but you're still serving straight up poison, man. Straight up poison. Let me pull this up. Check this out. I don't agree with everything this guy says, okay? But sometimes he has some decent perspectives. And I want to show you this real quick. I'm not going to play the audio because they're playing like an Eminem song or something. I don't want to get hit. But this was during Halloween. Now, whoever this person is, it's obvious they did it for virality, okay? I think this is totally for social media clicks. But it's just the idea of it is frightening. But it speaks to what I mean by our, like, health-wise, dysgenic American culture. Check this out. Oh, man. Okay, you can see that. So she's giving away 2-liter bottles of soda for Halloween. Okay. Now, again, I think this is overkill. This is like a la Mr. Beast. Look what I can do. This type of like exuberant consumerism, what is it? Conspicuous consumption, taken to the nth degree. Oh, you can't hear that. Let me turn that down all the way. All right. So, handing out 2-liter soda for Halloween. Look at this. Look at her home. I mean, imagine. She must know someone who's like a delivery man or something. How do you get this much? It's disturbing. But I get it. This is 2023, man. This is all about the effect. This is all about reaction. Right? Wild. I mean, look at this. I wonder how many 2 liters this is. I mean, they didn't even go to the left. I bet there's more. It's just ridiculous. And again, I know there's a design behind this. They're trying to get people's attention. They want to be ridiculous. That's the point of the culture today. That's the point of social media today, is to gather attention and reaction. But I'm more concerned with the poison aspect of it. It's like, that's the last thing. And a candy alone is bad. We shouldn't be giving kids candy either like this. But this is just some really over-the-top stuff right there. I thought that just kind of fit well with what we're discussing here. But let's look at this regarding McDonald's. This is Paul Saladino, who, I disagree with on certain things. But I think he has a lot of stuff together. And he is kind of eccentric, we'll say that, right? Dude needs a wife, right? But this is interesting as we talk about McDonald's. Check this one out.
Your McDonald's chicken nuggets contain 30 ingredients. I used to love these as a kid too. I ate too many of them. Now that I know what's in them, It's kind of scary. I think part of the reason that I was kind of a fat kid is because my parents let me eat way too much junk food like this. There are 4 different types of seed oil: corn oil, canola oil, soybean oil, and hydrogenated soybean oil. There is chicken in here, but there's also bleached white flour, which can be bleached with harmful chemicals like chlorine dioxide or benzoyl dioxide. There's also multiple preservatives in chicken nuggets, including aluminum phosphate. Excess amounts of aluminum in the human diet have been associated with increased rates of dementia and Alzheimer's disease. That's not even talking about the sauces. Sweet and sour sauce, first ingredient, high fructose corn syrup, also contains soybean oil. Ranch sauce, first ingredient, soybean oil. Do not eat.
And he's not even really saying all the ingredients. There's dyes in there. There's all types of dyes in this stuff. And he didn't even touch on the quality of the chicken, the parts of the chicken that are used, where that chicken actually comes from. So this is just surface.
Chicken nuggets. Do not let your children eat chicken nuggets. As Americans, we get more than 60% of our calories as ultra-processed foods like this. It's no wonder that so many of us are fat, sick, and unhealthy. The way forward is clear. Eating less ultra-processed food, more unprocessed, nutrient-rich foods.
So imagine, speaking to the percentages and the importance, imagine getting 60% of your caloric intake from processed food. That's incredible. Like, when we really consider the importance of these things, that's incredible. So as he said, it makes complete sense. Yes, whole foods, absolutely. Whole foods, and cook your own food if you can, if you have time. Cook your own food. You'd be wise. Yes, they add natural flavors. Natural flavors. There's nothing natural about natural flavors when you look into it. A lot of it is like mold, like derivatives of molds, and yeasts. It's really crazy. But then you realize food is a massive industry. Big food. It's a massive market. So there's a lot of money to be made. And then you think of above the money, the financial aspect, and those who control markets and resources and populations. There's a social engineering component to it. It keeps people ill. It keeps large, massive swaths of people significantly, chronically ill. And two major forces there, of course, is diabetes and heart disease, right? So it's crazy when you think about it. And then we think about diabetes as an example. And what's really popular right now is all of these new drugs, right? There's always a solution, and it's a drug of some sort, right? So there's this problem. Mounjaro is more effective than Ozempic. Ozempic, a very popular weight loss drug. In overweight and obese adults, real-world study says the diabetes drug Mounjaro is more effective for weight loss than Ozempic in the overweight or obese adults, according to a large analysis of real-world data. Patients taking Eli Lilly's Mounjaro were significantly more likely to lose weight and saw larger reductions in body weight compared with those on Novo Nordisk's Ozempic. The results come as both drugs and similar treatments approved for weight loss soar in the demand in the U.S. for their ability to help patients shed unwanted pounds over time. Now, I do understand these drugs are very common. People in my own family take these drugs, okay? Not my immediate family, but extended. It is a part of our life now. It's a part of all of our lives, these types of illnesses, because of the diets, the patterns and behaviors that we haven't been enculturated with and sold over time by way of big food and industries and big pharma being kind of one industry in and of itself. I think the merger of Monsanto and Bayer is a good example of that. Yeah, sugar is a gateway drug. It truly is, at least processed sugar. Right. We do need glucose, right, for the brain to even function. We do need some levels of glucose, but that can be acquired through healthy forms like raw honey, right, pure honey, as well as fruits. Right. This is where I get my sugar intake, from honey or from fruits. That's pretty much it, unless, occasionally, especially during holiday seasons, I'll have me some cookies or something. But, I try to stay away from that stuff altogether. But there are times, especially when you live a pretty strict kind of dietary life, it's okay to have a little something, right? I love me some ice cream. I'm gonna have me some ice cream. That's one thing I will never give up. I don't care. I'll never give up ice cream. Ever. Okay? It's not like I eat a tub a day. It's not like I eat a tub a week. But I'm going to keep ice cream in my life. Okay? So I'm not saying give up all sugar, but there are times where we need to give up sugar for a period, especially if we're trying to get right, trying to clean up, right? Trying to clean the gut, etc. Sometimes you have to say no sugar for a month. I've done it. Right? And then you can have a little fun. Raises metabolism or blocks digestion, says Sail Away. I would say blocks digestion more than raises metabolism. Even the concept of metabolism is questionable the way we've been taught, right? Food is a drug, Josh. It is. Absolutely. It's psychoactive. Yes. Yes, food can also affect behavior, not only health. Spot on. Who said that? Passing traveler. Yes. Absolutely. I mean, certain foods, especially processed foods, affect your hormones. They affect thyroid function. I mean, all of this affects your behavior, right? All of this affects your mood, especially when we emotionally eat. It's even worse, which a lot of us do. Some of us grew up doing this habitually. Some of us are still fighting that stuff off. Never liked sugar since I was a child. I find it disgustingly sweet. Wow, Prisma, you are blessed. You are blessed. I've had a sweet tooth since the womb. Okay. My mom always tells me how my favorite thing to eat. One of the only things I ate as a an infant was bananas. Yeah, I love me some bananas, and that's probably the most. Aside from apples, highest sugar content. Yeah, man, I struggle. Even to this day, I'm a lot better now, but I love me some sweets, man. So yeah, we have this whole, don't eat right. Don't even consider what you need to do to lose weight or to retract diabetes. Just get this drug and let us manipulate how the system is working. Can you imagine how that must damage the natural processes of our bodies? It's scary when you think about what that's doing over time. I'd say it's not easy to accomplish, but once you can kind of get the discipline to do such a thing, it's very easy to shed off exaggerated pounds. Fasting, right? Fasting. Now, got to be careful talking about fasting now. They want to give people strikes for telling people to fast now. This is crazy. Yeah, fasting, man. Water fasting does wonders. Water fasting, and you could start off intermittent and just cutting out sugars, processed sugars. I try to stay away from sugars altogether for a couple weeks. You will be amazed how much you feel. How much better you feel cognitively, how much clearer your mind is. And you do that for a month, you're going to shed pounds. And some people, that's starving yourself. No, you just eat a small, nutrient-dense meal once a day. It's amazing. Guys talking about, I want a six-pack. Not like that's important, but it's not hard to get. Well, the discipline is hard. But what you have to do to get it is simple. You do one meal a day, nutrient-dense meal a day. You'd be amazed how drastically your figure changes in about a month. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And then you think about how we were, say, in earlier times. How much better in shape and health we were because we didn't eat 3 massive processed meals, sometimes 4 with little snacks in between a day. See. Food is a part of our culture. It's a part part of our emotional states, right? It's, let's be real. It's a part of our relating too. I mean, I love cooking meals for people. I love it. I love it. I love making a meal for a group of people and sitting down and eating together and watching them enjoy the food. And it's just, I grew up in a family like that. And I know many of you probably can understand that. It's part of how we get along. It's part of how we bond. We bond over breaking bread, right? So it isn't to say that there's something inherently bad about the food. It's our relationship with it, right? And it's the quality. It's the lack of consideration we put into this ritual of sorts. It's a joy, says Prisma. Absolutely, it truly is. And what's cool is once you change your relationship with food, you can really enjoy it because then it's not killing you. And it tastes better too. You'd be surprised. Once you get off the slop, you'd be surprised how good whole food tastes with real sea salt, pepper. You really taste the food, man. You really do. Really do. Essentially says my boys will eat up some bananas like crazy. I'm telling you, man. They're so good. And the texture, they're filling, they're sweet. The texture is really, really nice. I like almost anything banana flavored. Banana cream pie, banana chocolate peanut butter shakes. I mean, all of that good stuff. I love it. Peanut butter, chocolate, and banana is like the best, the the best combination, man. It's delicious, man. I stay away from it. I have to. FDA approves a new weight loss drug, Zepbound from Eli Lilly. So I'm just showing you how we're given solutions. We're giving synthetic technological solutions opposed to human scale solutions, like changing your relationship with food and taking our health into our own hands, right? Let's see, Ozempic for kids. This really disturbed me here. I almost wanted to shed a tear when I read this one. It's like, is this a thing? Is this where we're at? I mean, it's enough for people to do this to themselves. Listen, we're responsible for ourselves. Sometimes you just let things go, and that's how it works sometimes. Not to say we can't ever bring things back. I've been there before. You're just too overwhelmed with things in life to really consider, okay, I need to start eating right and cooking right. And I get it, right? I've been there as well, we have to deal with how we take care of ourselves. It's our responsibility. But when you start projecting this onto the children, one's own children, that to me, that's where things get real dark. When kids are brought up in ways where they're just given everything they want and they don't grow up having any real semblance of nutrition, and it's natural for kids to want to eat whatever they want. It's totally natural. It's okay. They're immature and they're innocent. They don't have that capacity, especially when they're really young, say before teen years. They just want to eat what tastes good. They're not thinking about, having strong bones and healthy hearts and, protein content. They ain't thinking about none of that. They just want to taste stuff that tastes good. Ozempic for kids. Drug makers test weight loss shots for 6-year-olds. Guys, 6. Pediatric obesity experts say the availability of safe... What? Are we here again? Safe and effective. Now you know this was part of a new speak NLP kind of Jedi mind control that we were given during COVID, because it conjures up this agreeance, in a person that hears it. Safe and effective. Oh, safe and effective. I remember that. It's good. It works. We're in this together. Safe and effective medications is a game changer, they say. Can you guys believe this? Can you believe this? 6 getting obesity shots. Again, shots, right? This is the move. Shots. Getting in bodies, getting in bloodstreams. Saxenda. I mean, I can't even believe this. Now scientists say, trust me, bro. Right? Robotics says, unfortunately, yes. I guess I'm being facetious. Absolutely. Right? When we think about them pushing what we saw on 6-month-old infants. Now your 6-month-old is eligible for a novel therapy. Get it while you can. And then we think of the celebrities, right, that push this stuff. Travis Scott, for instance, his McDonald's thing, which I think he might have been one of the earliest, at least modern, super modern people. But if we want to really go back, we got to go back to Michael Jordan, right? Michael Jordan and Larry Bird. 1993 was on his way winning his third straight NBA championship and solidifying himself as the greatest basketball player in the sport that day, claiming the spot from previous best man, Larry Bird, in his promotion of McDonald's. Right. Highlight the change in NBA climate. The two greats competed in a one-on-one game for the sake of McDonald's fries. McDonald's fries. And an endorsement ad. Bird challenged MJ to game for the latter's Big Mac and fries combo. The winner had to watch the loser eat his food. You guys remember this? I was about 12, 13 around this time. I remember it was a big deal. So now I'm just trying to show you the cultural aspect of this. We look at the technological, we look at the industrial, and of course we have to look at the cultural, the cultural influence, the social engineering dynamic, right? So we were always, we look up to these, of course, it's always sports and music, right? Goes all the way back to stuff Plato used to say about the arts, right? It's powerful. So it's always these arts influencers, and we look up to them. We have respect for them. They're in the spotlight. They have this inherent prestige. So if they're saying that, they don't even have to say it's good or bad. It's the fact that they're just promoting it, or we see them eating it. That's messaging. That sends us a message that it's okay. And then there's the cool factor and the prestige. So we want to involve ourselves as well. Charles Barkley, Kobe Bryant, okay, Tony Hawk. All right, Destiny's Child. This has been going on. This one's interesting. These are more the newer ones. Okay, so recently, following up Travis Scott, we have Sweetie, and her situation with her Sweetie Happy Meal. Oh man. And then we have Clean. I don't know what this one is, and I don't know who these people are. Tim Tebow. Oh, Tim Tebow. Isn't he like I think he's an athlete, right? He's like NFL, maybe. I don't really watch NFL at all, so I don't know. And then we have Justin Bieber, and what is this? Canadian pop singer Justin Bieber must have been an early adopter of manifesting movement. Tim Hortons. I'm not sure what Tim Hortons even is. I haven't heard of that. But here we are with the celebrity branding of processed food. And then this is a recent one. Megan Thee Stallion and Popeye's chicken. Okay. Interesting, right? Grammy Award-winning rapper Megan Thee Stallion's partnership with Popeyes includes her new hottie sauce. Get your hottie sauce. Oh, man. Oh, get your hottie sauce. Sad. And then we have Latin pop artist, J Balvin, and his McDonald's promo. So there we go, moving into the Latino market, which is huge, which is massive. And when you look into the numbers, similar to the Asian market, they outnumber the American market when we think of numbers, right? When we look at K-pop or different artists in Asia, and we look at Latin artists, we see just these markets are huge because they're highly populated, far more than the West. So yeah, and then of course Travis Scott and his infamous Happy Meal that we talked about in the Disastro World documentary. And then we have, of course, K-pop, and we have BTS, and they have a McDonald's deal. Okay, so this is important because this is driving these endocrine disrupting, hormonal disrupting, eugenic even, right? Eugenic food sources. I think we are a dysgenic society when you look at the state of our health, meaning we are getting sicker and sicker, and we're bringing sicker people into the world because we're all damaging ourselves. But again, it's not all our own fault. I'm not trying to say that. We are definitely given a lot of poisons, and our environments are toxic, etc. But we make it a lot worse when we decide to say, eat these types of ways. Okay, so it just compounds on the problem that exists already, right? And these characters here, these artists and musicians and athletes, they speak directly to the youth, who are the future, right? Who are the future? And then we have, of course, Lil Nas, and he has a Taco Bell deal. Taco Bell, taco smell, taco hell. Yeah. I used to like Taco Bell back in the day. Chalupas. I used to love me a chalupa. Right? Crispy. Yeah. Sloppy ground beef. It's like soup. Soup in a fried tortilla. Tasted pretty good, for the time. Had me my fair share of taco smell, taco hell. I did. But here we are. Lil Nas X, giving Satan a lap dance in his latest video, right? And selling you mystery meat burgers or mystery meat tacos, right? Yeah, taco smell. Yes, you think they are invincible. Great point, Barry. They do. Corey G, good to see you, bro, says experiments. Yes. Experimentation. Live operation. Mexi melts, yeah, those used to be smashing. Mexican pizza, I used to like me a little Mexican pizza. when I used to eat those things, yeah, man. I used to love Jack in the Box, all that stuff. I was bad, man, especially in high school, because we were blessed. Well, I wouldn't even say that. It was almost cursed to have what they would call at the time off campus. Off campus, they called it. What was it? I forget what they called it, but we were able to leave campus and go get food during lunch and stuff. And right when we leave the school, like the whole street is nothing but fast food. So we had Burger King, McDonald's, Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, and we used to just go crazy, like for real. And and then when you mix the celebrity influence, it's just culture is created, right? Whack in the back. We used to say Jack in the crack, but yeah, that's a good one. I've never heard whack in the back. Yeah, we used to call it Jack in the crack. Yeah, man, that was the spot. I must admit, we used to have some good times over there, and we would double it up, man. Because as I said, I was part of a busing program in high school, so they used to bus us, kids from the bad neighborhood up into the nicer neighborhood to go to a better school. I'm thankful for it now, right? And so we would get. It was far from where we lived, so we would get to school early. Like school would start at 8:15, 8:30, from what I remember. We would get dropped off at the school at like 7:15. Right. This is just the way the busing system worked. They used to bus about 100 of us up to this school up north. And we had all this time. So we would go to Jack in the Crack. And we would just get, curly fries and jumbo jacks, and just chill. It was good times, but of course, unhealthy times. And then you think about, okay, if all of this stuff is damaging us and is creating like these synthetic kind of bodies, and, if we just become dependent upon pharmaceuticals and care, from the quote unquote care economy, because that's what it is. It scales it scales people's illnesses, right? It doesn't heal, it doesn't cure anything, right? And then we think about the direction technology's going, right? We think about, efficiency, velocity, shrinking, instantaneity, right? Devices, data, remote, in and out, removal of brick and mortar, no more public, more on public space. For me, clearly, it's going towards a type of algorithmic, automated hospitals. And we've talked about the home-spital. We'll be returning to that soon, by the way, the whole World Economic Forum home-spital initiative. But let's look at this. This is from NHK Japan, who are way ahead of the game when it comes to a lot of this type of technology, given that they know they're depopulating and they need some help, they need assistance, and they're going directly to technology. So it's always good to look to the East for some of these things. Let's look at AI hospitals.
McDonald's.
AI, artificial intelligence, finds cancer cells. A robot delivering medicine. An AI robot providing comfort to sick children. Efforts are underway to use AI and other digital technologies to make patient experiences at hospitals more comfortable. They ease the burden on healthcare providers, reduce medical errors, and lessen rural health disparities. Several leading hospitals in Japan are participating in this project, turning various ideas into reality. The project is led by this person.
心のゆとりを取り戻すために AI やデジタルが必要なの。それによって
I want you guys to be able to read this, so hold on one second. I brought it back a bit.
The project is led by this person.
心のゆとりを取り戻すために AI やデジタルが必要なの。それによってエンファシー、私は勝手に思いやりって訳してますけども、エンファシーに満ちた医療を取り戻すということがこのプロジェクトの大きなゴール。
The main goal of this project is to bring empathy and compassion back to healthcare. I mean, that sounds oxymoronic even. Because this is precisely what AI cannot provide, empathy and compassion. Now, I guess I could look at it as if what they mean is due to our empathy and compassion for the future, we're bringing AI because if we weren't to do so, people would be in a worse situation given that, we have less resources to care for people. I could see what they mean by that. But what we are very clear on is that AI cannot provide empathy and compassion. So it's tough, man.
How will AI transform hospitals? What will the future of hospitals look like? On today's Science View, we will look at the forefront of AI hospitals in Japan. Hi, I'm Michelle. When you're feeling slightly ill, you might find it a burden to go see a doctor at the hospital. In Japan, there's a long waiting time, a brief examination with a doctor, and the hassle of undergoing tests. As a result, some may feel reluctant to go see a doctor. Doctors, on the other hand, often say they would like to spend more time to examine patients, but are too busy with other tasks. Efforts are underway to solve these problems, making hospital visits less burdensome and more pleasant. It is known as AI Hospital. Today, I am visiting an institute in Osaka to meet Yusuke Nakamura, an advocate of AI hospitals. Let's go meet him. Hello.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Welcome to Osaka.
Thank you very much for hiding us today.
Please follow me.
Thank
Yeah.
you. So an AI hospital is a term that is still unfamiliar to many of us in Japan. Can you explain what AI hospitals are exactly aiming to achieve?
As you know, the AI means AI means loving in Japanese.
Yes, that's
so
true.
now the humanity is a little bit less in the medical area. So my aim is to bring back the humanity in medical care system by supporting AI or digitalization. So we prefer the term of AI hospital because of, as I mentioned, connected to love in Japanese.
That's a wonderful idea. And are there other things that you try to keep in mind for the doctor's sake or the patient's sake?
Actually, both. When you go to the examination room in hospital, so in general, doctors are just looking at the keyboard and the monitor. So there almost no time to watch each other, and basically now the eye contact is lost in the medical examination room. But that increases the unsatisfaction of the patient. So if we can have extra time or enough time to take care of patient, we can watch at the patient and basically understand how they feel emotionally and can take care of the patient with humanity. That is the biggest goal.
What would an AI hospital be like overall? I had a chance to experience it. Let's look. At Keio University, one of Japan's leading universities in medicine, the entire hospital is pushing toward digitalization. Okay, first, you sit down. And it's just like a smartphone. It tells you what to do. Okay, so I have three choices. This is where you draw blood. Let's go. With this, patients can easily move around the spacious hospital. Wow. Oh, another one. So it's another 1 minute and 30 seconds for me to write this. We're here. Okay. The wheelchair automatically goes back to its station.
Is it just me, or does this kind of remind you of like one of those old after school specials, you know, or like maybe one of those little segments in Mr. Rogers where he goes into the real world and shows you how things are made, you know, with the campy music, and it's just so jolly. And I do have to remember, you know, the Japanese culture, it's campy and fun and stuff. So I get it, but it's just it reminds me of that, you know. This is such a almost like draconian kind of idea, but it's being presented in a very lighthearted way. It's fascinating. And I will say this, I believe, at least in most cases, especially regarding the Japanese, I think, just based on what I've experienced as I've been there several times, they mean well, right? And this could probably be very advantageous for their culture, right? Given the difference in the collectivism and the high trust, et cetera. It's very rational to move this direction. I understand that, but I'm concerned with this being implemented in a universal fashion. And I also consider how different the West is and how much big issues could be part of that, right? Let's continue.
New patient questionnaire is conducted on a tablet. Data is then transferred to the patient's medical records. In the future, the goal is for AI to automatically assess what disease the patient may have.
その場で教科書を何冊も調べなくともデジタル化された情報がすでにカルテのところで見れる。
An ultrasound.
So, I mean, I have a problem with this. I do understand the efficiency of it. I do understand the processing power of it. I totally understand its ability to store just exorbitant amounts of information. But this idea of, instead of us going to textbooks, we go to the AI. I get it. I definitely understand using AI for information. I don't think that's as big of a problem like using, say, Chat GPT style machine learning to gather information. That could be rather innocent. But I think this directionally is going towards a type of automated self-diagnosing type of generative AI, where the AI starts to make choices for itself based on its ability to generate different forms of data and through algorithms and logic coming to conclusions. I'm concerned about that future of AI. What's being presented here is extremely, I'd say, surface and innocent compared to where at least the West is pushing, and China is pushing a lot of this AI. Anyhow, let's continue. This is just a good example of seeing where things are going regarding health, hospitals, and technology.
Of the final stages of pregnancy.
呼吸の練習をしてます。非常に元気なサインですね。親指と人差し、ガッツポーズしてるような感じですかね。
As soon as the doctor sends the data, the images can be seen on an app. Various data on the patient is saved on it.
当初ですね、始めた頃は逆に煩雑にはなるのではないかとかですね、業務が停滞するのではないか、いろいろ心配な声もですねあったんですけれども、いざ始めてみると、非常に簡便な作業で。
こんにちは。
With this app, the mothers can also get postpartum consultations remotely. It all started when the COVID-19 pandemic restricted outpatient admissions.
There we go. Justifiable application, right? As a response to crisis, right? Very rational solution, you see. And then when we consider how this crisis, so-called, was orchestrated, it all seems to make sense, especially when we know that AI technology, especially AI in biotech, is the future of public health and medicine. So it just gave it a nudge to in a sense, accelerate its adoption. And here we are.
産後のママと赤ちゃんをサポートすることがちょっと難しくなってしまったっていうことで、そこはすぐに早急に何か手を打つ必要がある。
Hospital patient management has.
Okay, this gets a bit detailed. We don't have to watch the whole thing. It's like 30 minutes long. Measuring reliability. So we have reliability, pathological diagnosis. This could be problematic, but let's just see how they present it.
Hospitals are working to provide high-quality diagnosis and advanced treatments. This is the hospital specializing in cancer treatment. Requests for pathological diagnosis of cancer arrive from all over Japan. They confirm if the patient has cancer or not and examines the type of cancer and its spread.
Now, what the problem I have with this is it presupposes the diagnostic process is accurate, right? Now, to try to tread lightly on these ideas, what if the diagnostic process, what if the conclusions thereof are based on a type of false presupposition or false premise? That would tell us that our conclusions or our diagnosis are invalid. What if this is the case? And what if our entire diagnostic system, as well as our understanding of how things work, like, say, disease, are flawed, right? Germ theory as an example, germ theory as an objective standard, right, is a perfect example of what I mean here. something to consider, given the fact that, yes, maybe this type of technology could be extremely advantageous for certain processes, certain tasks, sure. But aside from the application of this type of technology, wouldn't it be wise for us to look at, and I know they're not going to do this because they have motives, but I'm just speaking objectively here. Wouldn't it be wise for us to look at the frames, the models from which we're moving regarding, say, disease or illness, right? So for me, I see right through this. It's like, wait a minute, cool tech, bro, but your whole foundation is wrong. Your premises are false. All of these conclusions these AI systems are coming to are completely invalid. Therefore, you're misdiagnosing. And we understand what happens after that. And we see dangerous substances and therapies and things being injected in people when they shouldn't be, right?
Making a diagnosis by looking at cells under a microscope requires technique and experience, and human resources are limited. It is also time-consuming. Now, research has begun that uses AI for making pathological diagnosis. So far, it has been trained on data from 200,000 data images of cancer cells.
Are we sure we know what those images are saying? Think about this. Are we sure we know what those images are? Or are we just defining them and labeling them in a way that conforms to a predisposed model, right? Are we labeling them such that they fit in a certain model that we rely upon to make sense of these systems? What if we're totally wrong? And I would argue we are. What if we're totally wrong about what disease is and how it works in the body? What if we are? If we are, hypothetically speaking, okay? If we are, wouldn't that suggest everything this AI is coming up with or working with to come up with conclusions is completely wrong and false? That's a scary thought, because think about this. Iatrogenesis, medically induced harm or death, is the third leading cause of death. So imagine applying AI to a system like that. Think about that logic.
どこまでがんが広がっているのか難しいという検体です。で、これはブルーの部分におそらくがんがあるのではないかっていうのを AI が読み取った結果を表示しています。右手に見えるのがこの検体から病理スライドを作成したデジタルデータにしたものです。このブルーの部分にがんの細胞がいるというのを AI が判定した結果になります。例えばこの領域では拡大するとこれががん細胞になります。この白く
Sure. All right. Let's say this. Let's say these through imagery, regardless if we know what we are seeing is or why it is, if we know that whatever this thing we're seeing is causing damage and eventually death, okay, cool. The system has discovered that. So we could say, well, maybe the AI is fitting its purpose and it's accomplishing its goal and its mission. But then, all right, hold on 1 second, guys. I'm sorry. I'll continue playing this so you can see, okay? I'll get back to that.
灰色で丸いカエルの卵みたいなものですけど、これが未分化がんの細胞になります。このがんのタイプはこの胃の粘膜の中をですね、バラバラバラっと広がっていく性格を持っていて、病理が細胞を探す時にも非常に大変というか時間がかかるし神経を使う細胞のタイプになります。しかし AI はきちっとこの部分を取っています。ただしこの AI もですね今開発中ですので完璧ではないんですね。というのはこの部分にもがんがある未分化がんの成分があるんですけど、この部分をこの AI はまだ拾いきれてないっていうのが分かります。ですのでここはがんですよと教えてあげる作業を追加することで 次に AI が学習するときにこのような細胞がいればその領域はがんであるんだっていうふうに認識することができますので、次のステップではおそらく今よりも賢い AI になっているんじゃないかと期待できます。我々のその知識をできるだけ他の病院でも同じようなレベルでがん系の治療とか診断が受けられるように、AI を開発していって、それを他の病院であったりとか社会に広げていくことが、我々の使命かなと思ってます。
Meanwhile, the National Center for Child Health and Development is working on having AI identify bacteria types in less time. Minori developed blood poisoning, or sepsis, after a bone marrow transplant. Doctors quickly identified the bacteria that caused the infection, and she was able to recover.
Okay, great. Excellent. She was able to recover. All right, I'm back. Now, some could say, see? Look, we need this type of technology. This thing could catch things that the human can't see. Okay, let's grant that. Let's grant that. The next question is, what do you do about intervention, or not intervention, but what do you do about treatment? Right. It's a massive issue, right? So then we have to consider, what does treatment consist of? And we see how treatment for certain things have been. Just throw a jab at it. Throw one of these new novel jabs. Oh, we have jabs for bacteria now. How does that make sense? We have jab for fungal infections. How does that make sense? See? So regardless if some of these machine learning systems can do good things, or at least be helpful, we have to consider treatments, and then we get into a whole mess back to the presuppositional problem, right? What if we don't understand what's really going on? The machine, like Weizenbaum had said in his work, is just going to make the problem even worse, because it's going to speed up the processes of whatever that is. So if the process is slowly destroying something, say a certain treatment is actually causing harm, like different types of radiation treatments as an example, technology probably would only just speed up that process and make the damage much worse. So something to consider. I have so many more different types of AI hospital stuff. This is the most mild and innocent and reasonable example that I wanted to show first, right? So we can see how, at least initially, this might work. Okay, now I want to show you this right here that I find very fascinating. This is a state-of-the-art piece of technology by Go Forward. It's called the CarePod. And this is the world's first AI doctor's office. Check this out, man. A different application of the concept AI hospital. Check this out.
This is not a doctor's office. It's Forward, the world's first AI doctor's office. It all starts with the CarePod, an entirely new approach to healthcare with prevention at its core. With health apps in every category to choose from, we're here to treat the issues of today and prevent the issues of tomorrow. We'll start by establishing a baseline of your health, diving deep into all aspects of your health.
Here we are. You see how this relates directly to the Internet of Bodies. This relates directly to the Internet of Everything, right? A full body scan. Now listen, some of this to many will be amazing, and this is what we've always needed. But what this is doing, it's doing full body scan, genetic analysis. What this reminds me of, it's moving towards what we saw in Black Panther. For those that saw it, do you remember Black Panther 2? especially in the beginning, in that kind of hospital they have, and how the sister, she was trying to like bring him back to life, and she was using all of this like Mission Impossible style technology, and it was scanning everything. It's like we're moving towards that type of thing. Now, some would argue this is exactly what we need. Why wouldn't we use our technological prowess to create such precision? And I agree. Listen, guys, we can be objective about some of this stuff. Right? We can say, wow, this level of precision, important point here, in the right hands, in trustworthy, honest hands, this technology could be extremely advantageous, right? But that isn't the case, bro. There aren't trustworthy hands. They don't exist. Now, I'm not saying there's not one person on earth that could be trustworthy. That's not what I mean. I mean, in the industries. Now, we could even make some really low, basic, hyper-progressive leftist arguments and say, how could you even go about trusting a corporation with your life when they're ran by strictly corporate greed alone? Right? We can make even a basic argument like that that's legitimate. Of course, we'll go way further than that and take it to a spiritual dimension and a social dimension that's beyond just the political. But yeah, man, imagine this level of precision in the hands of the World Health Organization. Really? You gonna trust these people? The CDC. Informing these algorithms with their up-to-date data. You know that's where they're getting the data from. Come on now.
Past health history, current health state, future wellness goals. Body scan, biometric monitoring, blood testing, genetics, and more. It's all about understanding where you are today, where you want to be, and how to get there. After establishing a baseline of your health, you're able to personalize your care with health apps curated for you.
Precision medicine right here. Imagine if we get to a point where you need to be screened by this thing just to get insurance, just to get health care in, say, some whatever type of hospital it is. This is the perfect program to initiate every single person into the Internet of Bodies system, because through that standardized screening, they will attain every single piece of data your body has. Fascinating, isn't it?
Like our heart health app, proven to lower blood pressure in 90 days. Powered by in-person and remote biometric monitoring, you'll be able to detect murmurs and other irregularities and lower your risk of a heart attack or stroke. With a focus on keeping you healthy, you and your care team will be equipped to make the right decisions for your long-term health. Or our skin cancer scan app, to track and monitor things like mole growth, skin lesions, and discolorations over time. Or our mental health app, to monitor anxiety and depression with ongoing guidance and support. Whether it's weight management, diabetes screening, or everyday care, like a routine blood draw, COVID-19 testing, or kidney and liver health, there's something for everyone. Because health isn't just about seeing a doctor when you're sick. It's about continuous, comprehensive care that addresses your health concerns today and prevents those of tomorrow. The world's first AI doctor's office. It's forward.
Yikes. You saw it here. We'll be returning to this in other formats and applications, because this is a big one here. This is one of the leading examples of this. Okay. Now, this is imagine this product being taken up federally. Right. Now, again, a lot of this stuff is proof of concept, early stage. It's infantile, clearly, but this is where they're going. That's why I'm showing you guys these things. The reason this is possible is because of everything I've tried to lay out throughout the show and that I've had in the past, and this incremental synthetic development of our bodies and our lifestyles has created a type of damage such that we do have a general state of chronic illness in all of us in different degrees, right? So and with that, there's this element of learned helplessness. So we've become detached from our accountability and ability to take care of ourselves in just a general way, say diet, for instance, right? We're so far removed from our own personal health, we can't even eat right, So as a very basic entry level part of personal health, diet, if we can't even get that right, imagine all the other things that are going on. So what happens is, over time, we become perfect subjects for this type of technology. It's rational, guys. This is very rational technology given the state of human health right now. In fact, many will argue, and they are, that this is needed now. This must be accelerated. Because people are sick. They can't even, live to reach certain years of age because of illness, et cetera, et cetera. So and disease and just the chronic aspect of it. Now let's look at one of the men behind this here. Hear what he has to say. And again, this is going to be sold like an ultimate savior, just like the synthesis AI, teacher and education that they're pushing now. We're going to return to that soon as well, especially on the Patreon and locals. We'll be going into that. I'll be adding it to the Reality Plus simulation lecture series because I want to show how kids are already being set up for the simulation theory for virtual reality as genuine reality and interaction with robots and algorithms and bots through education system. So not only will they be educated through artificial intelligence, but they also will be interacting with the artificial intelligence through immersive means, VR glasses, haptic gloves, etc. So it's all coming together. So this is the CEO, Adrian Aoun. This is a very quick 40-second clip, but I just want you to see him and hear what he got to say.
Tech companies, they're really not into drawing blood. Like, healthcare is messy at the end of the day. You have to become someone's doctor if you truly want to have the impact. It doesn't mean you can't use things like body scanners and screens and sensors and diagnostics, but you have to be willing to go end to end if you really want this to work. Today, what we're doing is we're taking the world's most advanced AI and we're saying, hey, here is doctor's notes from the 90s. Can you go ahead and operate? As opposed to really reimagining the system from first principles. So what we said is, okay, look, we obviously think that like the AI doctor is a fantastic world. We all want to get there. It will make healthcare ubiquitous and universal. But to do that, you actually have to start by building infrastructure that the AI can operate on top of. And this is why we build an enormous amount of hardware, an enormous amount of locations, et cetera, because we know that if we can't deliver that care, the world's best algorithm sitting in a room isn't going to do anything.
So what do the algorithms need? Blockchain. Blockchain, in my view, will be the answer to a lot of the problems AI and these types of network remote systems run up against. Blockchain will solve a lot of these issues. Hence the acceleration of Web3 development. So all of this comes together. And then we think of a lot of the biosensor work and biophotonics that are happening behind the scenes at Tufts and, Nebraska University and all of these schools working on these biosynthetics and biotechnologies. All of these will be huge for these types of early initial technologies. Once all of these things come together, we are looking at a type of remote human control, literally. I mean, you saw the clip before this where it's everything. I mean, this machine has access to every human function, every human process, whether it's mental illness, vital signs, skin stuff. I mean, it's frustrating because we know how this can be misused and will be misused. We saw it over the past few years. What happens when biotechnology is put in the hands of Kissinger-esque global dominant groups that want to tell you the best direction from humanity is to merge with machines via biodigital convergence. Yeah, man. Crazy. And then we look at this, just to add on. So there's a lot of moving parts, right? We have the AI, we have the geo and biosensor kind of internal stuff, wireless network systems, biophotonics, light. We have all of these things, right, that work outside of genes. But then there's also the gene component that is another market, a completely different market that is aiming towards the same direction, a type of fusion of machine and human, transhumanism, of course, but reaching towards a type of interoperable bioecology, right? Where body, environment, and technology are all one, right? So check this out. First CRISPR medicine just got approved. Yeah, for sickle cell. And we know about sickle cell. We know what group tends to suffer the most. Yes, the black population. And I've been trying to tell people, man, they're going to the inner city with a lot of this tech, man. They're going to be, like always, when we look at the eugenic system, what group was literally the guinea pigs when we look at the Tuskegee experiment, right, with syphilis and all of that. It's always, when we look at slavery was an experimental process in America, right? It didn't just was used to build economies and to build infrastructure and industry. It was also to test things on human behavior, human populations, genetics, breeding, right? Literal eugenics, breeding humans for slavery. Chattel slavery, you were bred in. Okay. You were born a slave. Right. Since then, and earlier, we can go to the days of Noah, right? If we want to get the start of this. This has always been the case. Different forms of genetics, eugenics, dysgenics. Okay. So here we are with CRISPR. First approved CRISPR medicine, sickle cell. All right, here's another one. The CRISPR era is here. The much-hyped technology for editing genes has fulfilled one of its biggest promises. Interesting how all of this technology comes out of America, too, especially like the most advanced stuff. If we want to talk about internet, we want to talk about wireless networking systems. We want to talk about Silicon Valley, right? If we want to talk about MK Ultra, if we want to talk about any of these systems, if we want to even talk about the Nazi Party, which was in a sense socially engineered and orchestrated as far as its thought, it was created in California. A lot of this stuff comes out of California. The MK Ultra program, Operation Paperclip was all thought up from these regions, the West. So here we are. After a particularly long and debilitating hospitalization in college, Gray was so weak that she had to relearn how to stand, how to use a spoon. She dropped out of school. She gave up on her dream of becoming a nurse. 4 years ago, she joined a groundbreaking clinical trial that would change her life. She began the first sickle cell patient to be treated with the gene editing technology CRISPR, and one of the first humans to be treated with CRISPR, period. Wow. Think of the significance of that, given what I just said. CRISPR at that point had been hugely hyped, but had largely been used only to tinker with cells in a lab. Yeah, Frankfurt School, there you go. School of Frankfurt, massive part of it. Extremely important. Genesis 6, there we go. Yeah, Brother Theo of the Unplug Him channel just recently interviewed Gary Wayne. Very, very interesting interview. I think he's going to have him back, actually. Yeah, that's a very significant piece of work. Has informed me quite a bit. It's very valuable, I'd say. Book recommendation to Tom Marimba, Annie's Yorugu. Never even heard of that one. Let me write that down. Oh, I can't wait to. We got a whole new line of stuff coming soon. I got a set of about 6 different books that I'm crawling through, and I can't wait to really jump into that direction. It's going to really add on to everything we've been digging into here. Let's see, Annie's Urugu. Cool. Our Post-Human Future by Francis Fukuyama. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I actually have that one. Yeah, Fukuyama is definitely one of the most cited and referenced thinkers in the post-human field, right? Philosophy, etc. Probably the most referenced for sure. Yeah, one size fit all solution. And they're going to claim that's not the case because they're going to say, oh, well, this is precision medicine, just like that device there. We're going to be able to address every single person at the root of their issues based on their unique genetic, hormonal, neurological design, right? We're going to be able to precisely address all of their problems. Yeah, the Van Allen books list, that's a good one, Josh Gilbert. Definitely check that out, just for some basics, some good preface pieces, for some of the stuff we discuss here. And I'm going to be actually making a new one to kind of follow up those workings, to go a little deeper into some of these more transhumanist angles, post-human angles. Yeah, crack epidemic is huge. Yeah, Roscoe. Absolutely. I mean, right now on the side, and I've been doing this for quite some time, but I've gotten some headway. I'm just doing my research in, of course, the history of Chicago and gang culture in the Midwest, and it's been a few years now I've been doing this. I don't really do any content. I don't make any content out of it. It's just kind of another area of research I do for my own knowledge. I've yet to really turn it into content, but I'm thinking about doing something with it soon. And the crack era and the war on gangs of the late 80s and early 90s is so significant regarding a lot of MK Ultra concepts and early movements to address with new novel technologies. And eventually I'll be able to tie some of these things in, like drill culture, and a lot of the stuff we see today with the artists. I'm going to be able to connect a lot of this to some of these new technologies coming. Similar to what I was trying to describe regarding slavery, how these groups, these underclasses are developed in ways where they can be experimented upon and analyzed behaviorally. This type of social field theory of, say, Kurt Lewin, who was a big, significant player in the MK Ultra projects, especially over there at Tavistock. So it's so fascinating to be able to connect these dots, and you start to discover that ghetto culture is actually a massive part of this type of post-human biotech design, this new future, and these groups, these organized factions of unfortunate scenarios become cycles and systems used to test highly sophisticated technologies, and not just social engineer culture and the minds of up and coming generations. That's definitely a big part that we spend quite a bit of time talking about, but they're also a part of novel technology introduction as far as being able to test things. And I'm still looking for some really hard evidence on this one point, but I'm starting to move towards this idea that the jabs had played some kind of role outside of what we've discussed. Because I look at some of these, especially in these inner cities where a lot of these young men are at, a lot of these, I'd say a great portion, if not the majority of them, have been, have taken the juice. And then when I look at some of these, I won't get into it right now, but it's an interesting road. It's just an interesting thing, man, how these young people, and then I think of Sexy Red and this whole push towards degeneracy and promotion of this stuff and this new influx of drill rap, and it's definitely connected. And I'll eventually get into some of those studies. But for now, we got to stay focused. It's too much, man. Too much stuff. I've also been touching on. Well, I'll save that. I'll save it. Let's keep it simple, right? Let me jump into chat here, man. See how you guys doing. Okay, we've been on 2 hours. All right, we'll be wrapping up here soon. Oh, thank you, Barry. Yes, I like I said before, I'm definitely going to be back to my documentary productions. You know, I'm right now working out some things, and I'm definitely trying. I'm still going to do the streams and everything, but I really want to get back to that. I miss it. I miss the whole workflow and the format. I miss being able to put my written thoughts to visual and really break things down in a way that can be a little more concise and less, you know, rambling as we do here on the streams. You know, I kind of want to get back to that format. So I'm going to be taking some of these ideas and putting some. Well, I'm doing it now. It's just I don't really know when I'll be done. But it's kind of dark, you know. It's I can't help but be bothered by it. But I think these things need to be looked at and considered. You know, especially when you look at the history of America. As much as, you know, this is my home, this is my country, it's all I know. But you know, I can't help but consider the laboratory that it is. You know, and it's not just the black population, though. That's been a very significant subject group and sample size for science and politics and social science, or should I say behavioral science, to glean data and test theory and test cultural systems on, right? But we could also look at the Latino population, which is hand in hand with the black population, especially regarding gang culture, which I'm extremely fascinated with. And I've been since a child growing up in areas that was heavily gang infested, especially during the 90s. You know, I never, as I've said in the past, I've never been jumped in. I never was in a gang, but I had many, I ran with them for years, you know, as far as like who I was around in school. And as I said, you know, I was in a busing program, and they used to bus a lot of us, you know, kids from the bad neighborhood. And a lot of them, especially in high school and during the 90s where gangs were huge, you know, were gang affiliated. And so I had always been around this culture, you know. I was very intimately involved as far as being directly part of initiations, as far as friends of mine, you know, getting involved, helping some of my friends get out of these scenarios and suffering because of it. You know, I've been in many situations where I could have probably lost my life. But I guess I was always that kid who knew that this wasn't the way to go, you know? So I never really I wasn't ever interested in being part of these things, but you can't help who you grow up around and who you befriend, you know? But I've always been fascinated because of my childhood, you know, being around these things and having a large portion of my family coming from Chicago, and always being very fascinated with Chicago culture. And the history of Chicago gang life and violence is so rich. I mean, even if we want to take it back to the near Northeast and you know, the Golden Coast, which I've been spending quite a bit of time researching, and you know, the history of you know, all the mafia and the mob culture there, and how that transitioned into, you know, especially post the abolition, what is it, you know, prohibition, sorry. Post-prohibition, moving into a whole new dynamic of gangs. And we think about the ethnic communities and how ethnic communities being, in a sense, merged inorganically, causing different ethnic groups to team up to protect their neighborhoods. And this whole movement of the progressive era turning into creating a gang culture. And studying this and seeing gangs develop out of neighborhood and ethnic ties into regional neighborhood allegiance, and in the introduction of colors and aesthetics. And then we get into actual weapons and guns, say into the 80s and 90s. And it's just such a fascinating thing to research. And given my ties to some of these regions and areas, and cousins of mine being in, GDs and in different Chicago gangs, and seeing what this life is like, and being around it, and then going into the academic literature, and getting more philosophical, sociological, psychological understanding of how these things develop, and putting it all together from real life experience and then book experience, book knowledge. Oh goodness, man. And then tying that into the truth aspect of things. When we think of MK Ultra, when we think of Project Paperclip, when we think of the civil rights movement, when we think of the FBI engineered takedown of Black liberation, and leading into the early 70s, and the sexual revolution and the counterculture, and where the whole Laurel Canyon plays into it, and then moving right into the 80s, gang culture, drug culture, as you had mentioned, crack epidemic, war on gangs, mixed with this new Bush era influx of surveillance, and all. My point is, all of these things are tied together, right? They're all connected. And as I get through this stuff and try to wrap my mind around it, I'm definitely going to be putting out some stuff, digging into it in some depth, similar to how I did with the media generations piece. Barry Duncan, gangs definitely are social engineering. They've turned into it, and they're definitely connected to Masonry, right? There's a massive connection between Masonic history, Masonic organization, as well as these gangs. There's a massive connection between gang culture, Masonry, but as well as cartels and mafia. And then you discover that all of these things are directly connected to corporations and politics. You could just move your way up. It's so interesting to really start to understand how all of these things work and how they're all connected. It's just so much information. It's hard to really handle in any short period of time. So I've literally been studying this at least in depth since about 2018. And me and Brother Theo did a tricknology show a little bit about it in 2021, where we talked about gangs and graveyards, and it was fun, man. But since then, I've gotten through a lot of literature, so now I'm even more excited about this, because I feel like I'm starting to figure things out a little more. But at the same time, it's hard to, you see all these young kids out here, and being swallowed up by these machines, and the gun culture, and the death, and the murder, and the children that get caught up in, especially in Chicago. It's very easy to talk about Chicago because it's kind of a death zone in certain areas, right? But it's not easy to understand why that is, and to actually know the history. And even when you dig into the history of Chicago, you discover that even the mayors, most of the mayors, especially the most significant ones, were in gangs when they were young too, because gang culture is an inherent component when it comes to Chicago's growth. And even when you go before the gangs of the 20s and you go back into its roots, it's built on, when you look at Dearborn, the massacre, and it's built on native blood, right? Warfare, massive death. The city was built on. And I don't like saying this because I don't want to say the place is cursed or anything like that, but there seems to be this like spiritual thing, a lot of the city is built on graves, and I guess you could say that about most places in the United States, right? But what if it's the case? And we could kind of go, and this is me and Brother Theo were relating this to the film Poltergeist, and how that house was built on a graveyard, and all of these crazy things were happening in the film, and we were kind of tying some of these things together. And it's like, what if America being built on this type of bloodshed, and this happens in every history, it doesn't matter where you're at, this type of conflict has happened, right? But there's something significant about America, given that it is Babylon, in my view, and it is leading the charge towards the singularity, and it is bringing all of this stuff. It's just, it can't, it's almost like it couldn't happen anywhere else but here. It was meant, all of this was meant to happen here. I was meant to be here. I was meant to see these things and experience these things and share these things. And I don't know, you know, I'm learning as I go, but it's like something about this place, man, is wild. And anyhow, you think about how the United States and the native scenario, and how so many places are built upon these graves, and the spiritual aspects there. You know, I don't really know how it works. Just interesting. It's really interesting. The Wild Wild West, someone mentioned. Yeah, Corey G. The Wild Wild West. You know? And you think about California and LA. I don't at all study the LA gang culture. I used to, like, back in the day. I remember when I was in like 8th grade, I read the book Monster, which really kind of led me into this research as far as just interest. Yeah, that was 8th grade. I read the book Monster. It's about like this infamous LA Crip. It was a really interesting book. And in 8th grade, this was the time where gangs were really starting to develop and spread in my area. And even friends of mine getting involved. And this was around like 90, 93. So we also understand that this is when Death Row Records was at its height, or at least blossoming. And this was purely about gang warfare. When we think of Snoop being a Crip and, you know, Dog Pound, and then we think of Suge Knight being a Blood. I mean, it's all there, you know. So I have academic literature that suggests so, and I lived it. I remember right when this type of music started to come out, especially with the Blood and Crips Banging on Wax album, and, you know, following Colors with Ice-T, which was in 87, I believe, or 88. And moving away from, you know, the Afrocentric culture, which lasted into the 90s, but with, you know, the onset of NWA, which wasn't necessarily gang-related, was more political, but still spoke to this energy, right? The spirit. And into 88, 89, and this is when we would get Banging on Wax type of culture. Banging on Wax, when did that come out? I think it might have came out in 93 or something. I can't really remember, but, oh, not Banging on Wax, but Colors. The film Colors really solidified this direction. Again, back to the media, right? It's always the media culture. And it really popularized this. And then if we look into the war on gangs, which was during this period. So isn't it fascinating how war on gangs was between about 85 to early 90s was kind of the war on gangs era. And then when we look into especially Chicago, I mean, gangs were taking off, especially if we consider 1980 was the merging of, or at least, I'm getting a little mixed up. I think 1980 was when the Gangster Disciples and the Black Disciples split, I believe. Or no, there was the Alliance. So 1980 was the creation of the Peoples, and maybe you guys don't know a lot about some of this stuff, and it's kind of detailed, and I don't want to put stuff over your head and that you don't understand. But basically, Chicago gangs are really unique in that they're based on what they call nations. At least they used to be historically, right? And there's these two nations. One is folks and one is peoples. Maybe one day I'll go into some serious detail on some of this stuff because it's fascinating on a social engineering aspect of it, right? And in 1980, this is when this started. So from that point, gangs, especially in Chicago, were extremely prominent and powerful and influential, right? So if that's 1980, and then we get through the 80s crack era, gangs growing and developing, and then of course we have to consider Florida, Miami specifically, with the cocaine boom of the 80s, right? So in Florida and Miami, you had the cocaine boom going on. Chicago, you had the gang boom going on, right? LA, you had the gang boom going on. And then across the United States, you had the coke or the crack epidemic, but also you had the ongoing heroin issue as well, right? And then when we look into some of the history of these things, we understand that these things were brought in through intelligence, right? These things are all tied directly to the government. And then you discover, oh, wow, okay, this makes sense because the gangs are downstream from the mobs, right? Downstream from the corporate mobs and mafias, and they're directly tied to governments and corporations, right? Lobbyists, etc. And then we move up even into the big pharmaceutical companies. I mean, that's why we have fentanyl issues now, because of what was going on in Afghanistan, and even since the Vietnam. And these drugs, I mean, when we look into the history of drug war and drug culture, we discover that a lot of these big-time drug dealers that are so famous, and rappers name themselves after them, are directly tied to law enforcement, to masonry, and directly tied to corporations and governmental bodies. It just reminds me of what we see in like the third world, where most people are innocent. And there's corruption, but the people are not really corrupt. It's the governments. It's those in control of the corporations, those in control of the industries and the systems, right? They subject their populations to these things, similar to what we'll be seeing happening in Israel very soon, where they start to sacrifice their own. They've already been doing it. It's just the same thing. Same old systems, same old processes and methods. And then if we look at things spiritually, we discover that this is all based in the flesh. All of these activities, all of these processes, whether it's drug use, gang warfare, violence, murder, all of these things are outshoots of the flesh. All of these things are rooted in an inherent systemic sin process, right? I mean, when we look at it from the spiritual element, it all becomes very clear. And then one thing I really had an interesting time doing was looking at the symbology of the gangs. And what you discover is that these gangs are all using occult symbolism. They're using alchemic symbolism whether it's the people's banging the 5, the 5-pointed star, or it's the folks banging the 6-pointed star. They're all using these very occultic gang signs and representations, even in the names. Say Satan's disciples. I mean, you get all of these references to Satan, to death. Now, of course, not all of them, right? There's like the Latin Lovers, which is one of these big Spanish gangs from back in the day. So it's not always like that, right? You get some of these gangs that are like party people. You get some silly and fun and lighthearted names too. But when we look at some of the most significant ones, they're appealing directly to Satan, and they know it. They're open about it. And it's my belief that it's what's fueling this. These are just different elements of Satan's influence in the world. And then when I think of like tattoos and, what we learn in scripture about tattoos, and I think about like the markings being like what we could call, me and Brother Theo were talking about this in our show too. They're like, what is it called? A talisman, almost. When you put these markings on your body, they become talisman of sorts, or there's another term for it. I can't remember at the moment. But yeah, I mean, when we think about the 80s and the significance of it, man, Florida, Miami with the coke and the development of that, and we go to the LA and the gangs and the crack and the heroin, and Chicago, the gangs, the crack and the heroin, same thing going on in New York. But then also the development for the first time, the uprising of rap culture or hip hop culture, which wasn't all bad, by the way. 1988, Actually, the next Future Shock show is 88, right? I'm kind of thinking about going into maybe having an 88 theme, because 1988 was so significant. Even occult references to 88 is very significant. Maybe I'll do something with that. Sigils, that's what I'm looking for, Emmanuel. Sigils, thank you. That's what it was, not talismans, sigils, yes. Appreciate you, man. And, I have tattoos too, so I don't have gang tattoos, but we do things when we're young. But yeah, there's something very significant about these things, and it's not always a racial thing because everyone's included. Especially when I do research in gang culture, a lot of these earliest gangs were Irish gangs, Polish gangs, right? Defending their ethnic communities against Italians, against Puerto Ricans, and of course against blacks, and vice versa, right? So gang culture, as I said, all of the major mayors in Chicago since at least say the 50s, were gang members when they were youth, because it's an inherent part of the region. It became more of an ethnic thing significantly after, definitely after the 70s. And then it became predominantly a black and Latino thing. And this had a lot to do with like white flight and a lot of different variables, right? And what you discover is as groups move out of these cities, I'm just rambling here, guys. Bear with me. I'm just free flowing here. Stuff's on my mind. I've just been reading this stuff lately, and it's all in my head. As these groups, so-called whites, move into other neighborhoods, the culture changes, right? Opportunities develop. So it really has a lot to do with these regions that families are trapped in and unable to escape. A lot of this has a lot to do with why these gangs remain. I mean, I got these really cool maps where they're like law enforcement documents, and they have these maps of Chicago from every year, and they have all of the different regions. And I like to study the development and the growth or vanishing of certain gangs in certain regions. And I've been looking at like between 2007 and now, and it's so interesting to see, like when I look at all the maps at once, and I could see visually like how, because it's data, I could see how the gangs move around and where they go and which ones die off and which ones grow, and I could start to connect conclusions on like why that is. And I even can see how the drill movement started in 2010 with like Chief Keef and all that stuff. It's like I know exactly why that happened, because it was a response or an outcome of the destruction of the projects, like Cabrini Green, John Taylor Holmes or Robert Taylor Holmes, all of these major projects that had been around since the 50s and had housed certain communities with certain gang culture. And once these were destroyed, these communities were dispersed into many areas, and what you had was gangs being laid upon each other, forced to live next to each other. And this is when all the violence blew up. And this was right around 2009, 2010, right when Chief Keef came out. And his music, his message was a symbol. It was an example peering into the time and the consequences of this. And what you found at this point, as they were dispersed due to the destructions of projects and certain communities that were supposed to help the situation, because the projects were ran down, they weren't taken care of. They were horrible environments to grow up in, but the social planners didn't have in mind the structure of gang culture and community culture. So what you do is we're going to destroy these projects, and we're just going to move everyone out into different suburbs. But they didn't realize that certain projects are like ran and owned by certain gang affiliations or gang organizations, right? So what happens is you start to mix them up, and at this point, this is when like all of the gang culture, as far as its structure, folks, peoples, and having these allegiances and alliances, these broke down. And between 2010 and say today, the gang culture has been fissured. It's been splintered. So this concept of alliance and allegiance or even nation no longer exists. So what happened is all of these new rivalries were created. All of these new splinter groups were formed. Sets were created. No longer nations, but it turned into blocks. And at this point, you have, say, a nation of 10 gangs that were allianced or aligned or had some sense of allegiance. Were now fighting each other and no longer a nation. They, terms like EBK, everybody killer, everybody against everybody. So this is why you saw the influx of murder and death in Chicago over the past 10 years. I mean, there's a big part of it. Not to mention the influx of social media, bringing a camera, a direct expose or direct experience with it because they're able to show it. And then you get, the virality on YouTube of a lot of the drill rappers that were living directly in these neighborhoods, right? So what you had is a lot of these gangs and these new developments of gang culture were also musicians, or we'll just say they also rapped. So what they would do is they would make music representing, maybe I don't got it too deep into it, man, the politics of it all. But it's just very interesting to see how all of this happened, especially in Chicago. Because when we think about things politically, everyone talks about Chicago. Everyone's like, oh, it's these animals over there. It's like you have no idea how this developed. This goes way back, man. This goes so far back. And there's so many moving parts, and there's so many influences. It comes to the point where we understand people are accountable for their behavior. Clearly, right? I am a social conservative, but at the same time, I do understand how things are developed. I do understand how systems are created, and I do understand how these systems become traps, right? They really do. They feed upon themselves. Anyhow, I've been really digging into some of this stuff lately, and eventually I'm going to put something together. But I'm realizing how this is a whole other element of why we're here now, right? With it's just another element of this degenerate culture and this youth culture that's escaping to gaming, escaping to social media, avatarship, asociality, or even antisocial behavior. And I see how popular that music was in the 2010s and the influence it had on a lot of these, say, suburban communities. It's just interesting. And then I think of people who are extremely famous now and have massive careers, like DJ Academics, who built his career on reporting on this process I've just described here. Being a type of YouTuber, reporting on the gang warfare that was happening. He built an entire career on that. And he's now a household name and utterly famous because he used to make videos about these young men killing each other. For sport, almost. So it's just very interesting to see how all of this has created careers for certain individuals, but has destroyed massive populations of people and families and futures of young children that had nothing to do with this stuff. It's really interesting. And we also see how these gangs in Chicago and violent culture that started off with Al Capone, really. And New York isn't exempt. There's a lot there too. But essentially, this really is all rooted in Chicago when we think about these. But it spread out. it's spread out into other areas and into the Midwest and Indiana, Milwaukee, Milwaukee specifically, which really took on a lot of the gang culture of Chicago into this day. I actually do a lot of research of the Milwaukee area in Wisconsin as well. It's really interesting how this works and the underclass that's developed. And when I look at Sexy Red, which I'm throwing some ideas around, about putting something out, trying to connect some of these things, but I see she is a very good example of this type of underclass culture, not necessarily gang related, but it's related. It's more hypersexual, it's extremely degenerate, but it's like, it's this Thanatos, this like seeking death, seeking it, promoting all the things that cause death. Thanatos. Glorifying death. Promiscuity is death. Not just potentially biologic death, but spiritual death, right? It's interesting. Yeah, Michigan, another one. Yeah, Michigan, for sure. Midwest in general, right? The Midwest in general has been extremely infiltrated by this outspring of just what we could even call traditional Chicago goings on, right? And we could always just go back to Capone for some of the beginnings of this. It's really interesting. And so I see this stuff and it's like, wow, this is just another example. And again, these people are propped up. They become famous. They go viral. And I'm sure of it. All of this is really just another element of MK Ultra. It's essentially a very, like, what we would call black ops, in psychological warfare, military grade, social engineering projects. I truly believe what we have seen over the years, especially regarding gang culture, drug abuse, drug addiction, and in the certain areas all of this stuff happened, you discover that how significant these areas are. Chicago, extremely influential, very significant. New York, Miami, California. Yeah. Not to mention they're highly populated, okay, which plays a role. Too many people on top of each other causes conflict, friction. Just logically makes sense that way. And then they want to put us in smart cities and mega metropolises, megapolises as they call them. It's madness. But again, they're going to solve these issues with technology. And we'll see what happens over the next several years. But I really believe these type of technologies will be used and experimented with, and they will test them on these inner city violent communities. And I personally believe gangs and gang culture are a part of this type of system, just like what we find in parts of the Midwest and even in the South and in Appalachia with meth culture, right? And communities that suffer from this stuff. Just we have the gangs, and then we have the meth, what we see in the West Coast, what we see in the Northwest. I think all of these things are just different ways to, of course, maintain drug industries, but also there's a behavioral component here. Because when I look into like a lot of this new technology coming, like AI and Web3 communities, a lot of it is addressing drug addiction. A lot of it is addressing mental illness. A lot of it's addressing identity. Now, some will say, oh, well, it's just a rational solution to these problems that already exist. Yeah, that's kind of a like normie way to look at it. Cool. But I feel like, and I think these systems are designed such that solutions can be provided for them. And eugenics, of course, it's all eugenics. At the root of a lot of this stuff, it's just, these are all eugenic and dysgenic projects. What is it? Dr. Amos Wilson, though I don't always agree with his stuff, he has some really good work where he describes some of the, growing up and developing in the ghetto, and how it's this type of interlocked system, this kind of closed system of like deconstruction. It's like you're trapped in this system that's constantly poisoning you in different ways. It's really interesting. And I think about how over time these systems have been kept this way. I mean, we could look at many parts of the United States and see this. And these are massive populations of people. It's like massive populations, white, brown, yellow, have been kept in these areas like projects, for instance. Even the term project, it's a project. It's so crazy. Then we think about America just being like a laboratory in and of itself. When we think of culture, all the biggest culture came from here. Hollywood, sports, entertainment itself, P.T. Barnum. I mean, we could go back. We have evidence for it all. The computer, Silicon Valley, the internet, SRI, all of it. It's all here. Think of the theosophical movement, and Western tradition of esoterics, Masonry. So interesting how it all ties together. And I don't have it all figured out at all. I'm nowhere near figuring it all out, but putting it all together, at least attempting to, is it's finally starting to seem a bit fruitful for me. Chasing a butterfly. Yeah, that's a good way to put it, Cody. Bread and circuses for all, Prisma. Yep. Someone had mentioned Rome earlier. Yeah, of course, man. Always leads to Rome, doesn't it? Every time. We're in the new Rome. I've said this in the past. We're in the new Rome. It's just continued here. Babylon, Egypt, whatever you want to call it. Bagelville. That's another one. That's another one. Lemov's World is a Laboratory. Yeah, I reference it all the time. It's a great piece. Great work she did. I constantly reference that book. I really like how she described how the importance of the progressive era and the social sciences were utilized to map human behavior, but also integrate it through behavioralism to technology. And it is through Lemov's work that I've come to several understandings of the connections here, connecting social science, social engineering with transhumanist technology. And in her work, she constantly refers to Watson, of course, William James, kind of like a confidant of Watson. And of course, she went into Skinner, right? And she really began it with, what's his name? Goodness, it's escaping me. But his work with plants and birds and trying to understand systematically the function of birds and plants and applying that to humans. Very cybernetic, right? Yeah, I like Lemov. Definitely. Good reference. Very good reference. Yeah, Rome never fell. I agree. It's funny how people are so often offended by bagel references. Seems like a pretty mild slur if you even want to call it that. Yeah, I agree. And, I think everyone's just a little more sensitive now. Shoot, back when I was coming up, man, just open racism was funny, right? Like, it was not a big deal. And it depended on how you went about it and where you did it, but we were a lot thicker skinned in the 90s and 80s. Yeah, Francis Stoner Saunders, the Cultural Cold War. Yes, when we get into what is it, the CC, goodness. Yeah, I have her work. I used to really go into a lot of that history back on the Nightline, this concept of culture creation. She goes into the work of, the artists. We think about anti-art. We think about the period during the Dada movement, right? But she focused on, what's the guy who used to do the splatters? Goodness, sorry, man. I guess I'm tired. But she goes into that whole art movement that was essentially CIA. Yeah, the culture of goodness, the Federation, the culture, FC something, I can't remember, but yeah, Saunders. Yeah, she definitely. I like that history. It's very important, and it's more evidence for social engineering and the concepts of social engineering, right? Gosh, it's escaping me right now, but yeah, that's a good one. Culture is the new gang sets. There you go, Valar. Good to see you, by the way. Michael says, isn't victim mentality a form of narcissism? I would say victim mentality definitely is a feature of narcissism. Absolutely. Absolutely. Abstract expressionism. Thank you, Michael Ryan. Mm-hmm. Yes. And surrealism. Oh, I guess that refers more to the Dada movement, which was much earlier. But that was the lead up into this abstract expressionism. Not Pollock. Is it Pollock? Gosh. Definitely the Andy Warhol era, all of that. Yeah. The artistic postmodern movement, not the literary, but the artistic avant-garde garbage. Yeah, Manuel. I guess we could say the avant-garde started with the Dada movement, right, of the early 1900s. There's a lot of these movements, though. Actually, there's some futurist movements too that were promoting this stuff. Some of these names escape me, but the Enlightenment, I guess, led us towards all of this into the Industrial Revolution, right? Which caused a big move, a response to Romanticism, right? So when we look at the Enlightenment and the scientism into technology application, which created the Industrial Revolution, there was also this massive reaction to that said, no, everything's not technical, everything's not mechanistic. Things are free and open, and you get this new secular humanism, and you get this new romantic response that we saw in Romanticism, right? And that moved into, especially with the coming war and everything, World War I, and then we get into this response to all of it through the Dada movement and this idea of like, no, we're going to take art into our own hands and we're going to do things our way, and we're going to focus on absurdity and the antithesis of order and mechanism. Chaos, right? That's what we would get through Dada and into abstract expressionism. Abstract, right? We go from linear, scientism, enlightenment, reason, rationality, technology, cybernetics. We go from this to abstract, right? Very good point. Good one. Yeah, Pollock. Thank you, Bari. He was one of the major figures in this movement that Saunders uses as an example of this. And what we discover is that and even like Gloria Steinem in the feminist movement, she goes into that as well, describing how and I actually referred to her when I was doing my Media and Generations, because some of the research came out of that actual book you mentioned, her works there. And we have evidence. We have tons of documentation and even admitted acknowledgement of this by the CIA, right? Everything's been hijacked for the most part, especially anything like mainstream, for sure. Hey, Kobe Brewster, good to see you, man. Excellent. Basquiat, his works are just complete trash. Yeah, Basquiat was a big part of it. A heroin addict, boy toy, to Warhol. Yeah, it's a lot of it started there, and I've always been an artist, so I do understand the importance of art and expression, but at the same time, I can be very critical about art, especially considering the postmodern aspect of it. It's destructive. It's deconstructive, should I say. Jackson Pollock. That's it. Yep. Thanks, Johnny Cool. Jackson Pollock. Just a good representation of what we're getting at here. I guess we could argue, and many do, especially academically, Picasso was the beginning of this with Cubism. You know, taking realism, right? This kind of natural view at environment, at man, at reality, and turning it into something completely different with, you know, Picasso's Cubism is like taking these strange forms, deforming the real, going from this kind of realism into this absurd mutated representation of art. A lot of the arguments begin there with Cubism, right? But we see that just continue on with Pollock as an example. And then when we get into Warhol, we discover that it takes a corporate representation. It takes a mass production. It takes on this new, cheap, reproduced, derivative, lazy, apathetic kind of representation, right? So we see how Warhol altered it in that way, turning elements of fine art or elements of artistic expression into corporate entities, into reproductions, deteriorating any semblance of authenticity. Yeah, and the music went that direction too. Absolutely, Michael Ryan. And it's hard not to be partial to certain types of music. Like I personally like a lot of types of music, all types of music. I think at a subjective level, we could do that. But if we're going to talk about objectively, like, yeah, man, music really screwed up a lot of stuff, man. Like, especially directions it went. I mean, it's true. We could say that even about the moment technology was introduced to music in a way that changed altogether how music was produced, whether that be synthesizers, which I love synth, right? But I do understand it transformed the way music was made. And is that a completely bad thing? I don't think so, but unfortunately, there's been some negative outcomes of this. The better the technology gets, the lesser or the lower the authenticity is. And also we think about cultures that were developed out of these new forms of music. And it's not that it's the music's fault or even the technology's fault, but we think about the drugs that were involved, the culturally speaking, like when we think of certain forms of rock music during the 60s and its inherent connection to certain types of drugs. Like if we want to think about certain types of metal that had this weird connection to speed, or if we think about jazz at one point that had this direct connection to heroin use. Right? Or if we think about hip hop later on and how it had a direct connection, which it still does, to marijuana and getting high. I guess we could look at starting that with, the Chronic. I always refer to that. 1992 really kicked that off, the whole weed stuff. Because before the Chronic, no one was smoking weed like that in the industry, at least not putting it out there. And then we think about the onslaught of malt liquor, through Snoop Doggy Dogg and Ice Cube, St. Ides. Promotions. I had a St. Ides poster on my wall as a kid. My mom hated it. And now we think about, with the new age rappers, Future, etc., all pushing cough medicine as this kind of inherent aspect of trap music. I guess we could look back to DJ Screw at the beginning of that. Go to Memphis, Houston, Georgia, or Atlanta for some of that, but yeah, there always seems to be this connection between cultural artifacts like drug use, that have to do with behavior, that seem to coalesce with a certain sound, with a certain vibe or frequency. That's unfortunate, because without that, the music could probably be pretty interesting and respectable. Yeah, the Beatles, another one. Yeah. Lucy Diamonds in the Sky, yeah. Grateful Dead, spot on. Grateful Dead and LSD, great connection there. Spot on. And then we could think about the Merry Pranksters and all that history. Ooh, man. And then you want to get deep, you get into Stuart Brand and the connection to computers. And then this leads into this kind of like techno-paganism and into this new future of techno-pagan singularity. It's so fascinating when you start to tie all these things together. And then you add in, what's his name, Timothy Leary and the CIA, but also his connection to Apple. You know, he's one of Apple Computer's first celebrity, I guess, early influencer. You know, he was one of the promoters. What will we call that? Goodness. You know, like we had Michael Jordan and Nike, right? You had Timothy Leary and Apple, right? And then you think of where Apple is today with Vision Pro. It's pretty much a LSD piece of technology, synthetic, virtual version of LSD. Interesting. Yeah. Roscoe, John David Elbert, Pollock orbited his canvases like Landsat satellite, locking down at abstract topologies of Earth from outer space. He foreshadows coming epoch of encompassing of planet by human tech. Wow, well said. Yeah, John David Ebert, a philosopher, I think he's kind of one who coined, what is it? What is it? It's not supermodernity. Goodness, I can't remember the way he coined it. He's one of the few philosophers that been touching on this, not meta-modernity, because that's someone else. But yeah, I'm very familiar with Ebert, absolutely. I like his take on it. I prefer Marc Auger, his view on supermodernity through his work, Non-Places. I think he does a phenomenal job at describing what supermodernity is, at least from an anthropologic and architectural position, right? He describes how architecture has changed in response to technology such that non-places exist, and this is an aspect that defines supermodernity. And I have my own definition of supermodernity, which I'm fleshing out conceptually, and I'll be presenting it to you guys, but I'll definitely be referring to Ebert as well as Auger and the concepts of meta-modernity as well, which all work along the same lines that claim we've gone from modernity to post-modernity to supermodernity or meta-modernity. And what's caused this shift is just the addition of highly efficient and interconnected technologies. So imagine adding to postmodernity, which is already fractured and deconstructed, add very highly sophisticated technologies of speed and connectivity and instantaneity. Think about what you get, right? Yeah, good reference. Ebert's cool, man. He really goes in with, he's a great source for anyone who wants to research Spangler. He's probably one of the best. He spends quite a bit of time. He does a lot of good work. Hypermodernity. Thank you, Pope. That's it. Thank you. Goodness. So many things going on in my head right now. I keep forgetting just things. Yes, hypermodernity. Thank you for that. Yeah, so there's his concept of hypermodernity is very good, very fascinating. It's different from Auger's view of supermodernity. My view of supermodernity is a little bit of both of theirs, plus other concepts that I've discovered on from my own just lived experience. And then metamodernity is another kind of slice of that pie, you know, that offers another thing. We'll be getting into all of this stuff, guys. This is just stuff that I just regularly swim in, if you will. Yeah, Vision Pro is scary. It's creepy. It's just creepy. Did you guys see what I showed you? How you those clips of how you, like the onboarding process? You gotta like wave your hands and blink your eyes, and you gotta wave it in front of your face so it can read your. It's just like, what is this, man? What is going on? What about pop to sexuality? Great point, Sabrina. Oh, absolutely. You know. We used to talk about this quite a bit back in the day. Just this kind of like Disney to sex kitten pipeline in pop culture music. And that's, I think, a good way to describe what you're pointing at here. How we go from like pop artists to these like hypersexualized vixens It's so sad, and it's always like targeting these young girls. There's one artist right now who's really taking on this persona, trying to blow up. It's something Ray. I can't. She's one of she's what is it? Benzino's daughter. Yeah, it's just sad to see these girls just turn into like, I don't know. They just look like prostitutes, man. It's really sick, but you know, it sells. That's what it is now. I saw this clip today. It was like a TikTok, and it's like these girls like doing this weird viral dance thing, right? And someone had made an interesting comment. They're like, I forget how they put it, but basically what they were saying was like, wow. And all these girls don't even look, they definitely don't look 21. I'm sure they're at least 18. I mean, it's hard to tell these days. These girls, I mean, it's just crazy. All these hormones in the food and etc. But they were basically saying like, wow, all these girls are like, you know, under 21, and they're all sex workers. And it just like, it blew me away. I was like, whoa, this is true. This is true. It's like this new type of sex work. Sex work doesn't necessarily have to involve sex. It's sexuality. It's hypersexuality. It's conjuring lust in the hearts and the eyes of others, right? It's a work of sex, right? And you discover that a lot of these girls getting on these TikToks and shorts and stuff, doing these little like thirst trap clip short videos to get people to look at it and click on it. It's a type of sex work, especially when you discover that this is what they do. And it doesn't have to be even OnlyFans. But unfortunately, a lot of them have OnlyFans too. It's how they supplement their income. It's just, so it's like, wow, the first thing that popped in my head was, is this it? Is this the new career path for a large population of young girls? Are like upwards to 50% of the young, let's just say, relatively or attractive or of average attractiveness, is this the path? Sex work? Are we creating a generation of sex workers, digital sex workers? And then we see all the viral clips of young people complaining about how they can't survive, and they're right. It's hard to even pay the rent in certain places. So it almost becomes, even if it's not necessarily something someone wants to do, it's a rational route. It's a solution to the problem, especially if you're somewhat attractive. Getting a good $400 or $500 a month, putting yourself out there in ways that your father wouldn't be proud of. As if that means anything to a lot of young girls today. Sad. Playboy Magazine 3.0. There you go. Shawana, good to see you, sis. Yeah, very robotic-like as well. MK Ultra. Yes, just the repetitive in my TikTok documentary I did in 2021. I compare it to, I mix the concept or the concepts of like the work of mimes and burlesque. And I was trying to make the point that this TikTok digital sexual illusion is like a mixture of mimes and classic burlesque, where they're just showing a little bit. It's like this just sexually charged dances that becomes entertainment for men and women. But unfortunately, kids are looking at this stuff. And sometimes much older men are looking at these very young girls. So it's like this new burlesque culture that even young girls can get involved in. But it's mime-like, in that they're just like lip-singing songs or doing these strange little routines, very robotic-like. Yes, man. So crazy. It is sad, Prisma. I was like, where's your dad? Where are the fathers at? And then maybe they don't even know. That's the thing with this internet stuff and these devices and the social media. You don't even know what these kids are up to. It's hard. It's hard. It's hard to keep up. It's hard to fight. It's hard to battle. Like, where's your father at? Could you imagine if he saw this? What would he think? Or does that even mean anything to you? And some girls are just desperate. And guys too, these dudes be on this thing showing stuff, man. I've never visited the site, so I'm going to tell you right now, I have no idea what this stuff looks like. But I do know when I see someone put up their OnlyFans link, what that means, okay? And you would be surprised how many young men got these links up in their, their whatever thing on their social media. Coil Ray, there we go. Thank you. Thank you, Pope. Also, Ice Spice. Yep, she's another one. Yeah. They're just strippers, man. And of course, we can go back to Lil' Kim, okay? Sure. It's been going on. But when you introduce this type of technology like social media, man, you got 24-hour access to this stuff, man. You could follow this stuff every day and see new things every day. I mean, it's captivating to the mind. Back in the day when Lil' Kim was doing stuff, you might see her once a month or something on MTV. BET, you might see her in a video, and that's all you got. Just those videos. Or if you see her live at a concert. Or you got her tape or CD and you just see the cover. That's it. Picture in a magazine. Word Up magazine. Not Ebony magazine, no. The Source. Vibe. I had them all, man. I had them all. I remember. Yeah. Now, you get live action, motion, right? That you could watch over and over and over, and you could even interact. You could directly communicate with these people. They may not answer back, but you could directly communicate with these people. You have direct access to them. Next level, man. Takes this Lil' Kim concept to the sick, man. I just feel bad for all of these young people that are being terrorized by this. Dopaminergically, when we think about how this is affecting their lust, how this is affecting their concept of what a woman is, how this affects their ability to pair bond when all they see is flesh objects, right? And yeah, this has been going on since Playboy magazine, 1953. We've done videos on it. And even before that with Stag Mags. Okay, we've covered quite a bit here. But again, you add in this new technology, the overexposure to it, instant access of it, changes things. Repetition is a weapon. Our attention is currency. Spot on, Christina Murphy. Good to see you, by the way. I still remember when Days played that clip where the girl referred to OnlyFans as OF. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the new thing. It's the new thing. It's man. Yeah, Shawana, spot on. The issue being fatherless homes. But even worse, spiritually impoverished homes. Ooh, heavy. God is not the head of the house. Yes? Spot on. So even when there's a father in the home, God isn't present in the father, which, creates problems. No. It's oh man, when you look at that, yeah, man, damn. So true. Roscoe says, just 2 days ago, there was a 13 or 14-year-old here in BC, Canada, who committed suicide due to salacious videos of her. Oh, my goodness. 13 or 14, man. He got so much life ahead. I've heard of some stories like this before, and we're going to be hearing more of these, unfortunately. Stephanie says, trying to help my daughter find a wedding dress. Wow, okay. But they are all see-through or plunging necklines are slit up to the hip. Wow, completely not how to start a marriage. Spot on. I mean, yes, think about it. How is the groom going to be feeling about this? Does he want his wife to be perceived this way at such an important and sanctimonious moment? What about the people there? Do they want to see that? Do they want to have those types of feelings conjured from them? Right. Yeah, it's horrible. I mean, this is the culture, right? This is the style. Everything's sexed up, and it's always been this way, for the most part. But it's to the point where you can't even find stuff that's outside of that realm. Yeah, that's horrible. It's hard. It's hard. Creates more loneliness, says Sabrina. Exactly. Another one of the plagues of the moment. Loneliness. True loneliness. People might have a lot of friends on Facebook. Might have a lot of friends on Instagram. Might have a lot of people following them and giving them likes and comments. But they don't have any real connections. Right? They're not forming relationships, developing relationships, maintaining relationships. Yeah, loneliness, it's big. It is. And this is not just with the youth, it's with us all, right? It is, especially when you're in these areas of thought that we are here. It's hard to find people like us. I struggle in this world as well, trying to find like minds that we can create long relationships, and, it's tough. Yeah, Marilyn Monroe, Jane Mansfield, Dolly Parton, Madonna, Pamela Anderson, all the same in each generation. Yeah, Amanda, well said. Those were actually a bunch of the examples I was using in that TikTok video where I was describing the burlesque aspect of TikTok. I was referring to some of these characters. Yeah, spot on. Lonely fans. There it is. That's the perfect description of it. Lonely fans. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Raybo. Jezebel's spirit in full effect. Full effect. I mean, that's what I get. That's what I feel. I feel the presence of that when I see, the Coi Lerais and the Ice Spices and the, Rose and, Cardi and all of these. They're just glorified strippers. And I don't care if somebody's offended by that, because there's nothing respectable about a woman who takes off her clothes for money. I'm sorry. There's nothing respectable about that. In fact, it's disgusting. Cool man in a building. Good to see you, bro. Let's see. Thank you for being with us, Sabrina. We appreciate that. Yeah, it's amazing to me that people give them money. I feel you there. But then when you look around a little bit and just the lowliness of many men today, sometimes it kind of makes sense, right? Because they don't know what they're doing. It's act of desperation, loss, confusion, and this seeking some form of connection, I think, is part of it too. They almost feel like they know the person because they're seeing them in what some would say the most intimate representations and expressions possible. Seeing someone's form is an example of that, right? Possibly some sense of connection is experienced there, and I know that's a big part of it. Yeah, and that's another part of it too, Prisma. Young men don't have proper role models. Absolutely. I think that speaks to Shawana's point about not having men in the home. It cuts both ways, right? It hurts the daughters and it hurts the sons as well. Connection both physically and digitally. Well said, Axiom. Yeah. There's value there, right? There's meaning there to them. And when we think about a time where we're slowly getting further away from meaning and value, in lieu of any real belief system, we start to make bad decisions about what we consider valuable and what we claim meaningful. It almost becomes pathologic, where people live through sexual acts of strangers as forms of meaning and value in their life. Not to mention the dopamine pleasure center of that as well, right? I always think about the film Her. If you haven't seen it, you might be interested. It just gives you a peering view into the potential future, if not the present. It's well done. Joaquin Phoenix did an amazing job, as he usually does. He's an incredible actor, but I think he's working with a type of spirits, I believe. That's why he's such a great actor. He's channeling, as most great actors do. Seeking connection while seeking solitude makes no sense. I agree, Bari. I agree. They're contradictory, aren't they? But then we think about the general state of many people today. It's contradictory. There's a level of dissonance that can't be denied, right? People want to connect, but they don't want to connect, if you know what I mean. Right? You get a lot of these guys, through, just all of this over time, they don't know how to interact with people, especially women. But they want to, they just don't know how to. It's really sad, when you think about it. How is this going to pan out? Generation Z has zeal, is resilient, and does thankfully have quite a bit of its population going the other direction, which I'm very thankful for. I think Eric and Kobe, these guys are great examples of this. I think that's part of why they're here, because they are going the other direction. They aren't trying to fall to all of this. But I worry about Gen Alpha, right? I really do. The kids growing up as toddlers with devices, and who very well will have profiles in social media, say, as young as 8 or 9, because it happens, it exists, it really does. And then I could see how authentication is going to be a solution to the problem. Oh, because you could be lying. You're not 18, you're 8. We need your biometrics. Give us all the data. Yeah, double mind. Yeah, Axiom. A disconnected spirit from reality and a distorted connection with the flesh. Ooh, bars. Yes, Prism, it's bad for you spiritually, mentally, and physically. This is true. Johnny says, my daughter got hold of an iPad at my mother's house and she was communicating with some old guy sending pictures. What? Wow. Damn, man. That's oof. Gives me chills thinking about that, man. It's so easy, right? It's just so easy for that to happen now. It's instantaneous, a matter of opening up an application. I mean, this was one of the biggest issues with TikTok in the beginning. And they were really trying to create legislation against it because of this. There was all this data discovered that, there's all of these, pedos on there, phishing, and that seemed to disappear rather quickly, didn't it? It's horrible. Absolutely horrible. Yes, turn sex as a sacred act into a commodity, as most things, right? Even our attention, our connection, has been turned into a commodity. Even that. Yeah. Fragmented minds and hardened hearts. Amen. Robotics is so true. I've been single 10 years now. I've watched it decline, and making real connections isn't something many know how to do anymore. From the mouth of experience, man. Yeah, bro. Honestly, you know, I can understand that. I know if I were to be single, I wouldn't even know where to begin. You know, like just being out in the world. It's a new time, of course, but it's like we have a new population of people. They're just different. And I understand a lot of the reasons why. You know, there's low trust. We've really moved into this low trust society, and we've been this way, but it's just gotten worse. You know, and with a lot of the progressivism, you know, most women are offended if you approach them or even try to speak to them in a way that's, I don't know, at all. You know, I guess it depends on where you go. But yeah, man. Oh, I can't keep up with all you guys. He says, I just don't date anymore. I understand that, man. Especially with the jibby jab, juicy juices. It's always something to consider nowadays. Yeah. I think I'm going to get out of here, though, guys. I kept you way longer than I'd imagined, but I've enjoyed this talk. And this is the chill stream. I really appreciate this time to just kind of reflect and let things flow. It's nice. It's a nice change. Hope you guys appreciate it, because I appreciate you joining and listening to me ramble. Not to mention the social media famous kids who will also have money. Yeah. Money's a weapon, man. It truly is. It can destroy you. As I've said in the past, I had a good friend who I used to run with during my debauchery days. And, you know, we were partiers. And I remember he used to always say, man, I'm glad I'm not wealthy. I'm glad I didn't have money, because if I did, I'd end up killing myself, you know, by buying all these drugs, and just, I'd go too far. I know I would, you know, and that stuck with me. I was thinking like, wow, that's deep. That's deep. Like money could be your end for certain people. You know, if they were given riches and fame, it'd be their worst nightmare. We got to be careful what we wish for. I appreciate that, Rob. Thank you, Susan P. I appreciate you being here and the rest. But I got to get out of here. I got some things I got to do. Got to get back to work. Got to get some chapters done and get back to this outline I'm working on, man. This is going to be fun. I'm really thinking about this sexy red thing, tying it to gang culture, MK Ultra, you know, trying to get back into some of these concepts like we used to in the past. So I'm going to get working on that. And we'll be back ASAP. See you guys soon. I appreciate you all. Love you all. I want to end the show, as always, by saying all praises to the Most High God. In Jesus' name, amen. Shalom.